All right, good morning, everyone. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by sending notices on December 20, 2013 to the Record in the Ridgewood News, positioning notice of the special budget meetings on the bulletin board in the lobby of the Borough Hall, and filing notice with the municipal clerk. I'd like to remind all members of the public that there are 3 exits in the council chambers. Can we just begin with a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for the benefit of the new members of the Citizens Budget Committee, and to refresh all of our recollections, Alan's going to begin with an introduction to the budget process.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to pass out information which we're going to briefly review. The information has been emailed to the Mayor and Council and the Citizens Budget Committee, and these are a few selected pages from that document. The entire document runs I think about 23, 25 pages. It's an analysis of the borough's financial position over the last 5 years. And the reason we're doing this is on the very first page, you'll see question number 21 down at the bottom of the page, which is a best practices question. The state has mandated that we fill out a questionnaire or a survey each year and answer these best practice questions, and based on the positive responses that we given, that determines whether we receive all of our state aid at the end of the year. Question number 21 was a no for the Borough of River Edge because it was with regard to financial projections of our budget and the effect of past practices on future budgets. So today we hope to change this into a yes answer for the next survey, and that's why we're going through one of the reasons we're going through this process today, as well as to look at what our trend history has been and the decisions that you'll make about this particular budget and the impact it will have on the future. So just to give you a little idea as to what the financial trends are of the borough, and again, these are selected pages. There are other pages of analysis in the full document. Page 6, or if you open it up, you'll see state aid revenue as a percentage of total operating revenue. And as you can see, this is a 5-year trend history. It's a declining balance. State aid has been declining over the years. To give you one example, in the late 90s, or the mid to late 90s, we had two major sources of state aid, the Consolidated Municipal Property Tax Act and the Gross Receipts and Franchise Taxes, or as it's now called, the energy tax. Those two state aid items totaled $1,245,000. You'll see in this year's budget the total is $1,056,000. So we've lost $188,000 over the years. And the CUMTRA amount has declined from $462,000 to $13,000. So state aid has really not assisted the borough over the years in trying to modify our municipal budget to any great degree, and it has been declining. That's something we've had to deal with. As a result of that, and as a result of some growth in the budgets, page 11 shows property tax revenue per capita, and this is of no surprise to anybody that the amount of property taxes has risen over the years, and this is a per capita figure on those numbers. Page 13 is expenditures per capita. And what we see here is a trend where there's been a decline in the expenditures of our operating budgets. And this is due to the oversight of the Mayor and Council and the input of the Citizens Budget Committee over the years, the economy, as well as the limitations imposed by the state. Our budget expenditures have been reduced over the years. Page 14 is our net debt as a percentage of the 3-year average of equalized valuations. This is the measure that the state uses to determine how much debt we should be allowed to issue. And if you look at this graph, you can see basically it's fairly stable. The amount of debt that we've been paying off and incurring over these years, has not risen dramatically or fallen, in a substantial peak or valley. This is relatively flat. We've maintained this over the years. And I know this came up in the Finance Committee meeting. The amount of indebtedness is down on the chart, and you can see it's around $9–10 million. The capacity of the borough to bond, 3.5% of the equalized valuation basis results in a figure of about $61 million. So that's our capacity. That is what we're allowed to lawfully bond by the state of New Jersey. If you subtract the $9 or $10 million, it still leaves a capacity of $50-some-odd million that we can borrow should we ever need it. The next page is debt service as a percentage of the budget. Again, this has been relatively flat. It will rise when we add in the 2013 year. We just had a bond sale, so you will see a little spike here. But again, the council has done a good job of stabilizing this over the years, and over these past 5 years. Net debt per capita is another number that is of interest. This is a standard used by the rating agencies to determine how heavy a load the residents have in terms of the amount of debt that's issued. And I'm pleased to see, a slight decline here from several years ago on the net debt. One of our problem areas is page 20, cash balances. We have had some cash flow issues. It requires a very careful managing by Gita Birnbaum, our account supervisor, and the finance staff to make sure our bills get paid on time and manage the amount of cash that we have. And this has been done with a declining balance over the years. What we hope to do over the next 5 or 10 years is claw back or get back to a position where we have a sufficient amount of cash to make sure that we have enough for emergencies and pay our vendors on time, and then get back to a position where we're earning some interest on investments on these balances as well. The last chart is fund balance as a percentage of the budget, and what you see here is a sharp decline in the amount of fund balance that has been used over prior years. Frankly, we just don't have the balances available that we used to have, so we have been forced to use a smaller amount each year. But I'm pleased to say that the council has held true to the course in using a limited amount of fund balance each year, so that we can try and build that fund balance back to a point where we have the amount of cash that we need to operate on a fiscally sound basis. So that's an overview, and with those trends in mind, you'll keep them in mind, if you would, as we go through the budget process and make decisions on both revenues and expenses, and take that into consideration. The next document I have for you, you've seen it many times before. It starts off with a position summary. And I'll just go through the format a little bit. For those of you that are new, for those of you that have been with us for several years, please bear with me. We'll look at some of the totals here, and I guess I should preface this by saying that the Finance Committee always asks me for an early estimate on these numbers, and I resist that urge as much as possible because I'd like to give you the most accurate picture that I possibly can, but I know that you need to have some ideas to where you're at, so this really is a very rough idea. There are a couple of budgets that are still outstanding. There are many budgets that are subject to change. There are some budgets and revenue figures that are pure estimates at this time or guesses on my part. So page 1 is our position summary on the appropriation or the expenditure side, and we have the departmental account number on the left-hand side, which ties to the numbers in your black book. A short description of the budget line item with the department. OE or S&W is whether it's an other expense or salary and wage breakdown. The 2013 budget as it was adopted, what was paid or committed by the end of the year, the budget that was submitted to date that we have in hand that's in your black books, a dollar change and a percent change. And then if you go to page 3, we'll look at the down totals on all of these different accounts, and we'll get into some detail, on these others at another time. But if you look down at the very bottom where we have the double lines, the budget that was adopted was $14,470,841.87 in 2013. At this point, we've paid or committed $14 million roughly to that number. There will be bills that will come in over the next 3-4 months that will pertain to this budget, and what we're allowed to do is maintain the 2013 budget for an entire year to make sure that we pay for any commitments or bills that come in late. And we do have a significant amount of bills that will come in and be paid against this budget, eventually. So the 2014 budget submitted to date is $15,305,044 and a penny. We are up $834,202.14. Roughly 5.75% increase. It is broken down by salary and wages and other expenses. As you can see, the salary and wages due to the retirements that we've had in the police department and Department of Public Works primarily, it shows an increase of $36,000. On the 21st, I will review with the Personnel Subcommittee the details of the changes in this budget. The Personnel Subcommittee has always made recommendations as to the amount of overtime that should be budgeted, the amount of hours for various positions, salary increases, salary freezes, things of that nature. So this number is still subject to change based on those recommendations that will come back to the Mayor and Council after the 21st. But that is roughly up 0.63%, less than a percent. And most of the change is in the other expenses. What I've done is I've kept the reserve for uncollected tax figure the same as last year, just so we can purely see what the difference is in the other expenses at this time. That number has to be determined at a later point in time as well. That's a state mandate. And again, Mayor, perhaps not today, but we can come back and analyze that $797,000 and see why we have that change. The next page, page 4, is what I call the log, and this tracks the changes in the budgets from the point when everything was put into your books, from that point forward. So if we received a budget from a department and we checked it in and we put the document into your book, but then there was another change that was requested, I know we have the emergency management coordinator here today, so the first one has to do with a $500 change to his budget after it was submitted. We've added that amount to these numbers now. And as you make additions and reductions, we will track those here, so you'll have a full list of the changes that occurred from the time we sat down today to when we finish. And it literally can be, 100 or more changes that'll be made to these budgets by the time we get done. Page 5 is a little chart to show you part of the problem that you have, and that is that a lot of the budget that we deal with here, we're talking about a $14-15 million budget. Only 47% is what I would call discretionary. The rest has to do with contractual payments, debt, emergencies, sewer, garbage, landfill costs, pension, utilities. These are line items that you're going to find very little flexibility in trying to manage or do something with. So close to 53% of your budget falls into the non-discretionary category, 47% is discretionary, and then out of that, we're talking about maybe the other expense budget for the fire department, the other expense budget for the police department. We're talking about other health services. So you could even whittle that. I think we've whittled this number down to as far as maybe 20%, a 20% figure in terms of real discretion over a particular item, because there are maintenance contracts in here. It's a very difficult process that you have to go, that you're expected to go through because of the amount of discretion that you have over these line items and things that you're mandated by the state to provide, or you must provide to maintain a certain level of services for the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Next page is page 6, is a revenue summary. That's the other side of our budget. We have the appropriation of the spending side, and then we have 4 major sources of revenue. We have what we call miscellaneous revenues anticipated, and that's what you see primarily here. We have surplus as a second source of revenue. We have delinquent taxes from the prior year that are still open that we will collect, and then of course you have the amount of property taxes. So we have 4 major sources of revenue to help us with the appropriation side. The first item is the surplus number, and last year we had $425,000 adopted. The second column would be a column where we've added items to the budget during the year. The third column where it says realized, that's the amount of revenue that we realized by 12/31. And please remember, those are estimates at this point in time. That's an important column because one of the rules that we have from the state is that we cannot anticipate more revenue than we've actually realized in the year prior. So that's a standard principle. There are exceptions. We can make application for certain exceptions to the state, but that's a general rule we have to follow. And then I've calculated whether that revenue was an excess over the prior year anticipated amount or a deficit, the percent. And then a column called Finance Committee, Mayor and Council approved. This will become the final revenue number that we will have to offset our appropriations in the budget. And I've just penciled in some numbers here. These are still subject to change for you to work with to try and get an estimate as to what the dollar impact on the budget will be. So coming down these revenues, you'll see we have licenses, fines and costs from the municipal court, fees and permits, which takes in about 4 different departments, the police department, the health department, the clerk's department, and uniform fire safety has some money that goes into this category. Interest and costs on taxes is the amount of penalties and interest collected by tax collection. Interest and investments on deposit would be investments that we have on any cash that's available for investment purposes. Parking lot fees for the River Edge train station, uniform construction code fees, cable TV, sale of assets. We have some money that's available for sale of assets. Police outside duty, when they perform that outside contracting service, we receive some of that as the administrative portion. We receive the rest of it to offset the overtime. Here are the state aid figures: energy receipts taxes, Consolidated Municipal Property Tax Relief Act, Uniform Fire Safety, and the Garden State Preservation Trust, which is a declining balance. We received this state aid based on the property that was taken over by the state for the Newbridge Landing Commission. If you know the little jug handle down there, and we used to have a house sitting on that little island that was purchased by, Newbridge Landing or the state of New Jersey. So to compensate us for the loss of taxes, we received this amount, which has been declining and will continue to decline until it disappears at some future point, that $13,000. Then you'll see a listing of grants that we receive. Some we have available to us right at the start of the budget year, and many of them will become available during the year, so we'll amend our budget to include these amounts at a later point in time. Looking at the total adopted budget, the total revenues, $2,511,988. You can see right now I projected $2,094,000. We have a significant drop in revenue at this point in time. We'll have to wait and see what the final figures are on the realized amounts, the delinquent taxes, and what the fund balance will be. So that's the revenue picture at this point in time.
Can I ask one question about the energy receipt tax?
Yes.
Can you just go over that?
Yes. Let's see. It started off many years ago. It was called the franchise and gross receipts taxes, which was a tax which was collected locally by the municipalities. And that at a point in time, the state of New Jersey said, in their infinite wisdom, that it would be better if we collected the tax and then turned it back to the municipalities. This is a tax on the utility companies, your energy providers. And it changed from franchise and gross receipts tax to energy tax for this reason. When deregulation came along, under I guess it was the Reagan years, we found that we could only collect the tax from in-state utility companies and not out-of-state utility companies. But deregulation allowed us to purchase energy out-of-state. So it was an unfair situation. There was a change in the law, and now we can collect that tax from both in-state and out-of-state utility companies. When they put this law together and decided to turn the money back to the municipalities, they said, you know what, we're going to guarantee you a little inflation amount on this energy tax. And if we don't give you that inflation amount, we're going to put a poison pill into the legislation, meaning that if they don't do it, the whole tax goes away. Now, the state of New Jersey collects an enormous amount of money from this energy receipts tax, in addition to turning back some of it to us. So they are obligated to provide us with this amount of an inflation growth on the energy tax from one year to the next. In order to do that, what they've been doing is they've been reducing that next state aid item, Consolidated Municipal Property Tax Relief Act. So you see that, that's $13,000. That was in the mid-90s, $462,000. So they've increased the energy tax and reduced the Contra amount. The Consolidated Municipal Property Tax Act was the consolidation of a number of different state aid programs that we used to have to municipalities. We had the business personal property tax, we had a corporate tax, we had a railroad tax, state revenue aid tax. So that went on and on and on. They took all those programs and put it into one bundle, and now we receive this one state aid. So without spending more time and putting on my professor's hat, that's sort of an overview of that particular tax and what's been going on in that particular area.
Can I ask you one question? The police outside duty, is that the administrative fees, or is that the total amount?
No, that's not the total amount, because that is just the amount that we collect for what we'll call the revenue side, or the administrative portion, including the time to oversee the billing, the accounting, the amount of the car and gas that you see out there, even a mechanic's time to maintain, so that's our portion. The overtime you won't see, because that goes directly back into the operating budget to offset the amount of overtime that the officers have incurred. But no, there's a much larger number out there for the amount of police overtime.
Thank you.
Yeah. Page 7, if we could go to that, this is a two-part calculation. Starting with the bottom half where it says reserve for uncollected taxes, 2014 and 2013, it's a comparative schedule. The state has us put into the budget a line item called reserve for uncollected taxes. If you think about it, I told you that we had 4 major revenue sources, one of which was property taxes. Now, when we talk about the amount of property taxes we have to raise for the municipal budget, that presumes we will collect every penny, 100%. And we all know that that is not going to occur in any one year. So the state has us do an estimate of the uncollectible amount, put that amount into our budget, thus forcing the budget up, ensuring that we will collect a 100% collection for the purposes of offsetting the spending side. So this is that calculation. We start off by looking at the appropriations, excluding the reserve for uncollected tax. We subtract the amount of revenue, leaving us with what we call net appropriations. We then add in the tax amounts for the other taxing entities, which would be municipal open space, the local, the regional, the county, and their county open space, and we come up with the taxes plus the net appropriations that we have to raise. In order to get the amount of cash that's required, we have to develop an estimate of whether we will collect 100%, 95%, 96%, 98% in 2014. So what I've done here is I've used the same percentage that we used in 2013, the 98.8%. That provides us with the amount of cash that we need. Subtracting that from the taxes and the net appropriations leaves us with the amount that we have to plug into the budget. So you see here a $500,000 figure. Then, in order to calculate the tax rate for the municipality, we go to the top half of this page. Remember, the amount of taxes we raise is based on the value of the municipality and eventually the homes and commercial businesses that we have in town. So that is the net valuation taxable for 2013. I'm using the same number for 2014 until we get that figure from the assessor. Our total appropriations now, including the reserve for uncollected taxes, is that $15,326,402. That will tie to that position summary sheet that you'll see, that we first went over. The less anticipated revenue comes from the revenue schedule. That leaves us the amount of property taxes that we have to raise, $13,232,209. The amount of the library, a third of the mill, because they require that be a separate line item of taxation, was $550,330 last year. I'm using the same number this year. So the local tax rate is 88 cents for the municipality. And 1 point or 1 penny on that tax rate equals about $143,000. So if you want to reduce this tax rate by a penny, you'll have to either raise revenue in that $143,900 figure, or you'll have to cut expenses by that amount of money. Okay, how does this translate to the typical homeowner? Pages 8 and 9. We have a little chart for you here. To calculate the homeowner effect, it starts with $10,000. I think it goes up to about $750,000. So you can pick your home value of whatever you choose. 2014 is calculated here on just the municipal rate as compared to 2013, and then you have the increase in the dollar amount on the left-hand side. The chart up at the top, where I have calculation, those are the rates that I'm plugging in. So as you can see right now, I'm plugging in the .88 or the 88 cents for the municipality as opposed to 79 cents from last year. It's about a 9-cent increase. The other rates are there as well for the library, municipal open space, the local school, the regional school, the county, which also will include the county open space. And then below that, I have a little calculation to give you very quickly at a glance what a home at $400,000, $430,000, $436,000, or $381,000 would be. When we did the revaluation, our typical home it was $436,000, and now this year I think it's closer to $381,000 as the typical home. And I call it the typical because we could use other methods of determining what the average is, the median, the mode. But I like to just say typical, sort of a combination of what those measures mean. And then I break it down into annual, weekly, monthly, daily, if that helps you understand what that increase means, on a weekly basis to somebody who has a budget. All of these rates are estimated until the county strikes the rate. And the county, you should know, does, because of the rounding issues that are involved, may raise a little bit more than what you actually decide you want as a municipal rate. That surplus eventually comes back to the municipality, but it may change our rate very slightly because of the rounding that they do once the rate gets to that particular level. So right now, on the typical home, all of what that you've seen so far translates to, on a home of $436,000, about a $389 increase. $381,000 home, about a $340 increase. That does not include any schools, county, or open space money as well.
Now, the library is separate also then, Alan? Or is that included in
No,
our
that's
rate?
included in this particular rate increase, but when we do the
No, it's
breakout...
included, is that number, is the .038, that the breakout rate for the library, that's not included also in the overall municipal rate, is it? This increase of, say,
No,
$357
that
is
is
just
that
the
is
municipal
included
increase?
in our 88 cents.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
So the open space and the library would be included as this overall municipal increase? The 357?
Yes. I probably should not have included at this point in time the library under 2014. I copied
No,
it
it's just so we know,
over.
it's not 357 for municipal, and then we're going to add another 100 for the library, and another...
Their operating budget is in the 88 cents.
So you're saying the only thing excluded are schools and the county?
And the municipal open space, the county open space, which is included with the county there, yes. The two schools, the county open space, and the municipal open space are not included in this number.
And then on the flip side, just to clarify, Alan, the 15,305,000, the overall number, that's taken into account that everybody's submitting, but you said there were some people who didn't submit their budgets yet? But
Well, for instance, I have not received the police operating budget and the 911 communications budget, but what I did do was I plugged in last year's number.
Okay, but if there's any increases in there for personnel that they would want, that would be reflected in there already?
I haven't received, because I haven't received their budget, I haven't received their request, but I've already made my own judgment calls on the salary and wage side. So I've done things like I've included promotions, I've included new hires. Now, whether those will line up with what the police chief says, we'll see.
But they're in there, there's accounted.
I've already made
Okay.
some of those presumptions.
Well, that's
Yeah.
That happened.
The overtime for the police department, for instance, is the same as last year. Whether he'll be requesting more, I don't know.
The budgeted amount or the expended amount?
The budget amount is the same as last year.
Okay, because the expended was much more.
I didn't make any assumptions on overtime.
What's the drop dead date from the submitted budget?
We have to introduce this, the statutory date is February 10th, which has been extended now to March 14th, I believe. But please keep in mind, we'll have a limited number of meetings. I do like to take off the first weekend in March, take a little rest. So with that
This is every
in
year, I
mind,
don't know.
we don't have a lot of meetings to get all this done.
Al, what I meant is, did we give the police a drop dead date?
you have it in meeting
Yeah, all the departments received it. Given the fact that we weren't going to start with operating budgets today, and he wasn't going to, have to explain it, I've given him a little bit of leeway on that. So when you're ready to start with your operating review, we'll have him available to do that.
I just had a question on page 3. So we had budget adopted 2013 was 14,470, and then paid or committed was 14,029, which left a difference of 441,722. So you said there's still outstanding bills that have to be paid? Is there any way to know what's outstanding?
Well, I can tell you, when we look at what we call the appropriation reserve budget that's left at the end of any prior year, and I can give you a history on those typically run anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000, maybe a little bit more.
So what happens with the balance and it just gets rolled over?
The balance will eventually become surplus. It'll flow to your surplus. If it's not used, then it will go to our surplus account. After it goes through that process of paying any bills that we have outstanding, it becomes surplus. So we will have an item of 2, 3, maybe even close to $400,000 at times that will help our surplus.
A great summary review, thank you. Do I comprehend this correctly? Percent change, 13 to 14 is about 5.75%. Is there any way of focusing in at this point now on a 2% cap?
Well, it's a good point. We will have to meet 2 cap mandates by the state. There's a spending side mandate, which I haven't put together yet, which we'll have to look at and see whether we're over the cap on the spending side, And then there's a levy cap, also a mandate, so the amount of property taxes we'll be able to raise to support this will be limited by that calculation as well. So our first object, frankly, is to get to a legal budget. And then we can deal with, what is a satisfactory tax rate given the services that you want to render in 2014. So yes, we still have to look at that. That'll be another piece to see where we are with regard to the legal mandates of the caps.
Alan, do these figures take into account a revenue increase once the New Bridge Landing project is
No.
completed?
No.
You cannot do that.
Not until no, I can't include that as a calculation. We operate, state of New Jersey has our municipalities operate since the Depression, what we call a cash basis philosophy. And that means that we deal with the amount of cash that we have as opposed to the amount of cash that we would like to anticipate. Schools and the state of New Jersey are on a GAAP basis of accounting. This is another basis of accounting. And that accounting system, in certain instances, allows them to recognize revenue for their budget as long as it's reasonable and they can make some sort of a calculation on it. As I indicated before, we are limited by what we actually collect or what we've actually realized in some of these revenue sources. And even in the property tax area, those limitations prevail. So it's a very conservative method of managing the finances of the municipalities. And that, frankly, came out of the Depression, those rules and regulations.
So when we start to collect those taxes, how are those then?
Well, we might realize
Accounted
an
for.
excess amount in the amount of property taxes that we anticipated this year. And that excess amount will go through our operations account and end up in fund balance for the operating fund, which then you see in your budget as a surplus item. The fund balance is the result of what happens during the year in a particular fund, current, capital, trust, and then once we enter it as a revenue item in our budget, we call it surplus. So, any additional taxes that we collect beyond what we've levied will show up in our fund balance account eventually.
But that only stays that way until we do the next revaluation, and then that increase gets spread back over everybody else.
Yes.
So it's not a revenue you can anticipate more than 1 year, or maybe up to 3 years until we have to do a reval. The levy cap, Alan, that's a straight 2% increase on the previous year's levy, or is it a formula based on the...
It's a complex formula because it is based on the prior year levy, the 2%, but it is modified by certain what they call exclusions. We have a pension exclusion. If the amount of the pension bill goes up over a certain percentage, the group health insurance, if that goes up over a certain percentage, that's excluded. Debt and capital are excluded items. So it's not going to be a strict 2%. It's going to be a number that's going to be probably higher than 2%. I know the public and the residents are used to hearing the governor and the legislature say we have a 2% cap, property taxes should only go up 2%. But by the same token, they've recognized there are some things that are beyond the control of the mayor and council, like a pension system, which is a state pension system, group health insurance, emergencies as well, and a state-declared emergency, and debt and capital items. So those percentages will be higher once we calculate it.
Because I guess as it stands now, last year if our levy was 11.9 and we're projecting a levy of 13.2, that's 1.3 million increase over last year's levy, and 2% would be about 200,000, which means we're $1 million over our
What page are you on?
levy.
7, page 7.
No, that information isn't on the...
No, I'm just doing the...
Ed's doing the calculation. All right, we have, we're dealing with capital today. We have our Office of Emergency Management, our Recreation Department, and our Borough Engineer. Mayor, if I could hand out the capital summary to everybody.
And Bobby, you have another meeting to go to attend?
Well, not for another hour, but it's up to you.
The first schedule I'm handing out, which is horizontal, is a historical schedule of all of the items that have gone into our budget related to debt, capital, anything that you might think of as a capital item, whether it took the form of a permanent debt or temporary debt. So in 2014, right now, this budget has in the capital improvement fund, which either represents fully funded capital items or down payment amounts on bonds to be authorized of $331,914. We have bond principal payments of $1,205,000, bond interest of $280,000. We have nothing for an Economic Development Authority loan, which is the loan we took out to expand the library by doubling the size. We still have some payments under New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust Loan, which is the low-interest loan we received to get rid of 2 pumping stations and send that sewage to Paramus. Deferred charge unfunded is another pay-as-you-go procedure that we've used for many years to reduce the amount of permanent bonding that we do. We don't have any temporary note principal or interest this year. And then I've given you a percent of the budget, the amount of the total budget, and a per capita amount. And the reason we provide this is so that you have some target as to what the impact on your current year budget is for all of the capital and bond ordinance decisions that you've made over past years. And as you can see, right now we're at $1,897,000 as opposed to last year of $1,413,000. So that's just there. So some trend history, target, if you will, or to keep in mind.
That $1,008,000, well, really $1,009,000, that's based on if we approved everything.
If you approved if you could prove everything.
So this is the top number.
The top number is just where you are today. It could grow depending on the decisions.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's
yeah.
the top number based on
Today.
all the different requests.
That's a position as of today at 9 o'clock. The other schedule is our traditional capital listing. And just to explain the columns across the top, we have the department that has submitted a request. The folio is an abbreviation which ties the documentation in your red book for each capital item. So the HVAC replacement, C9, you'd find some backup documentation in the red book to tie to that particular request. And then the funding of that particular item is broken down as we go from left to right. CIF is Capital Improvement Fund. That will either fully fund an item in the municipal budget. Those items are placed there either because they're sort of in a gray area in terms of whether they should be bonded or not, or they're small enough to be considered as a pay-as-you-go item, and we should capture these small items and try and pay for them instead of trying to incur additional interest costs and fees to bond them out. The next column is also with the Capital Improvement Fund. Both of these columns go into your municipal budget this year. DP stands for down payment. Anytime you authorize bonds, you have to come up with a 5% down payment. Another feature of our cash basis philosophy, very conservative. Even before you put a shovel into the ground, they want you to have 5% of that cash in hand and start paying off that particular debt item. So this represents 5% of the amount of bonds or the amount of the cost of the project that we would ultimately approve. The bonds is not in your budget at this time. That would be an ordinance that would be adopted by the mayor and council, and then we would decide on how to fund that at a later point in time. The budget column is for anything that I feel really doesn't fall within the fully funded or the bonding category and should go back into the budget as an item. These are sometimes submitted by the department heads, and in my opinion, they don't belong into the capital area. They belong back into the municipal budget. So there are a few of those that relate to that. Those would go directly back into your 2014 budget this year. And then a total approved, it's not that they're approved right now, this will be the column that the mayor and council will approve ultimately, so that final figure will be there. Right now, the total approved stands at $5,139,509. The two other columns on the other side of this page may be of interest to you. We have 2014 unfunded. This represents 1/5 of the bonded amount. As I told you, we had one column called deferred charges unfunded, where we try to raise money and pay some of these bonded amounts off before they get to the stage of having to be bonded. It's another feature of our pay-as-you-go philosophy, along with borrowing for these projects. So that's 1/5 of the amount that could theoretically go into a future municipal budget to try and pay off that item before we get to bonding it. In addition, we have the estimated bonding cost of some of these projects as well. So I projected a cost based on a 10-year bond sale at 2% interest rate for each one of these items. If you want to know, okay, we're not going to fund it this year, but what would it cost to bond it, you have some idea as to what those annual payments would be as well on each particular item. One other column I did not mention, on the front side, we have a column that says 1 to 5 up at the top. This was reviewed by the Finance Committee at 2 meetings, and they have had me place a number 1 next to the items which they consider to be a high priority for this year to go into the 2014 budget. So I created a little scale there so that the citizens and the mayor and council could, if they want to come up with some priorities, really number these in terms of a priority, and then you can see what you can afford to do this year based on those priority numbers. So with that said, Mayor, I know we have some department heads here to cover a couple of these items this morning, and I guess we can turn our attention to those specific items.
And now, just clarify one thing also. The priorities we established on the Finance Committee were not necessarily priorities. I think what we wound up deciding with the number 1s you see on this are things which are either ongoing projects or things that are standard replacement items, things that we would see normally every year. Like, for example, like the turnout gear for the fire department, some of the hardware. That's what we limited the priorities. I don't think we made any policy judgments on some of the other things yet. So even if something still wind up being a priority, it wasn't to say if it's not listed as priority now, doesn't mean it won't be a priority when we finish the process. Just so you weren't at the meetings, so you know what our thought process was.
So that makes perfect sense.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
How about Bobby, unless Tom, do you have another appointment? Okay, so why don't we bring Bobby up and let her talk about the recreation?
Good morning.
Good morning, Bobby.
Good morning.
Where are we looking at? Well, let's look on the list. If you could pass these two to Tom and Bobby so they have a copy of it in front of them. Then we'll know what we're referring to. And Bobby, if you look down, you'll see on the left-hand side under department, we have recreation. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6, 7 items, starting with KBG field lights replacement. Okay, so those are the items I would just like you to touch on.
Okay.
If there is something, documentation or something you'd like them to look at, they'll have to open up their red books and get to that item.
Well, the Recreation Commission did submit this packet, which is in your red book, which gives you the description of the project, the quote, based on to justify the cost, and also pictures. So I don't know if you want to refer to them. Basically, Alan asked me to be here today because these items that you see on the list here were submitted as capital. I'm here to answer any questions with regard to can these items be placed in open space. And those items that will be placed in open space today will be presented by the Recreation Commission on January 21st at the public meeting as an open space item. So once it's determined which item is going to be capital and which item is open space, then these open space items will be presented by the commission in full in their presentation on January 21st. I can go through the list, basically starting with the KBG lights. Justification that we have is that, first of all, it's a 29-year-old system. We have a illumination report that shows substandard lighting and illumination. We're looking at the safety of our residents that use this field at night, the energy savings based on this new Musco lighting system, and the fact is that the life is a 25-year life. The cost could be spread over that amount of years. In 2012, we presented this project. It was denied. In 2013, the project received $36,363 out of Riverend Open Space. Balance is $278,637. It is a capital project. It's a 25-year life. If we chip away at $36,000 a year, we're going to be looking at 10 years down the road to fund this through open space. Answer any questions with regard to that, as far as that project is concerned? I'm very happy to answer.
Last year, we had, I think it was a 3 or 5 year plan. Three on the open space, and then the council split vote to take money out of that for other purposes. Is the 3-year plan still not acceptable if we were able to go back to a 3-year under open space, or does it have to be done under this, fully under capital this year?
Well, if you look at a 3-year plan, you're looking at over $100,000, approximately $100,000 each year to fund it.
But that was what
I think we have
proposed last time.
$143,000 in open space this year, and that wipes out the whole open space, which is, there are 5 departments that use that open space for other uses.
But I think last year rec got, if not 75, 80% of the open space money to begin with anyway. I think that's the number.
But I think your argument is that if we did that, how much is open space?
I believe 143.
Sure, until we get the actual figure.
So that would be,
$144,000.
so we put 100,000, so we just put 100 and, we're basically saying that there'd be 40,000 left, and 75% of 40,000 is 30,000. So that's not a lot. Is that what you're saying?
It's not a lot. I mean, you have 5 departments that are going to be requesting open space. If you take the maintenance and projects that are listed that could be considered open space, the commission would be requesting around $37,000 for park maintenance and some of these development projects, without the Cherry Blossom Park match and without KBG lights. So on the 21st, we're looking at presenting projects that add up to around $37,000.
So if I understand it, your argument is that we should not be considering the 3-year plan to fund KGB lighting as coming out of open space, but it should instead be a 3-year plan coming out of capital.
Correct. That's my opinion, and that's the opinion of the Recreation Commission.
But it's not, it's 300,000.
Probably more for Alan, but can you do both?
300.
Can you fund part of it from capital and part of it from open space?
Yeah, you can do that.
And you can carry that forward for 3 years or 5 years or a period of time?
Well, on the open space, yes. That can stay there until it's used. On the capital side, we would probably have to do an ordinance for the amount, and then each year raise deferred charges unfunded in the municipal budget to raise the cash for that particular portion. And then at the end of, the sequence where you have all the cash together, you can go out and do the project. So could it be done? Yeah, it could be done. That way.
Bobby, you have a proposal from Moscow Lighting. You did last year, I think.
2012.
Right. How long is that proposal valid for?
Well...
Or have you had any conversation with Moscow Lighting that would kind of...
Yeah, I've had conversations with him. He didn't indicate that it would be an increase at this point, but again, it'll be a 3-year-old proposal, and if we wait another 2 or 3 years, obviously there's going to be an increase. The amount of the cost of equipment and so forth, but yeah, it'll be, I'm sure there will be an increase. I didn't get a new proposal. We're basing it on the 2012 proposal right now.
Alan, can I ask a question? The $36,363 that we've already set aside, we have to put a 5% capital down payment, as you called it, down payment, CIF down DP. So would we, if we did it this year, next year, the year after that, if we put it into capital, or portioned it out or did the whole thing, could we use that $36,363 that we've already appropriated, or set aside, rather, I should say, as the DP, or would, no, we can't?
No.
Okay.
It's in a separate fund. It's how we operate. We have these funds for each purpose, you know, with the...
I didn't think we could, but
Yeah.
I wanted to ask the question
No.
rather than answer.
Just had a question. Speaking to our borough attorney a few weeks ago, he, Little Ferry had gotten a grant, and they're installing the Musco lighting. Is there any such thing that we can look at for that? And they got quite a large amount of money to...
The mayor did look into that.
I did look into that with Capital Alternatives, who indicated that we were not eligible because we needed evidence that there was flooding down at the KGB for the Hurricane Sandy. And because we didn't have any flooding for that event, we were not eligible for...
Only for that? Because I have pictures of
I know
knee-high water down
we've
there.
had flooding down there from
Yeah, but we
Irene.
did not have the flooding that we've had in the past for Sandy. And this particular grant was for the damage created from Sandy. But honestly, our flooding was minimal.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why Little Ferry got those lights is because their whole electrical panel and the
Correct.
whole 9
Yeah.
yards got wiped out.
Exactly.
Fortunately and unfortunately for us, our electric panel's high enough that the water never gets there.
Can
If
that
it got
be
there,
dropped
we'd have a lot
down
of
and
problems.
people go down there with some saws or something? I mean, that thing is flooded all the time. The one time when, you know, you can capitalize on it.
It's truly amazing that the lights turn on, if the lights come on every spring when we turn them on, because it's direct burial. We're down there for 29 years. The poles, you can hear the wiring in the poles.
Well, you hear like a zinging.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's a shame.
Yeah. And the cost for those lights, they're archaic, they're old lights, it's costing us an awful lot of money to turn those on every day. So overall, this would be a 20-year savings if we put in this new system.
I was about to ask you that. Was Moscow give you a number of
It is in the
energy
proposal.
saving?
I mean, the whole proposal.
Yearly
is-
savings?
Yes. It's part of the proposal. And, I mean, I could go into detail on it, but, you know, it's all in that proposal we have here.
50%.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Let's see, then we go down the line as far as the sprinkler system for Memorial Park. We have no water system in Memorial Park except for the bathrooms, and we put a lot of money in 2007 to put the garden area in, and most of the plantings are dead, are dying. And so it's something that we have, our next item is to renovate the garden area in a certain area, so putting in the water system makes sense now because it's going to be, irrigation is required for the new plantings, as it's the perfect time to put this water system in. Can this be open space? Absolutely. It's a maintenance, it's a maintenance issue, so that could be, in my opinion, or the Recreation Commission is open space. The next item, in the garden area, we have benches that have been memorialized to many of the residents. There are 7 benches memorialized. I have requests for 3 more benches to memorialize the residents. And we have an area that is unused, which is a horseshoe pit area, and we have a conceptual plan to renovate that area and put in 6 more benches with pathways, plantings, and the benches. So that would be, again, development of park. It would be an option for...
Would that be to remove the horseshoe area?
Yes. It's unused. And it's actually, it's a maintenance nightmare. The water sits in there, and then horseshoe pits, it's not used. The horseshoe pits are not used by the residents.
What about bocce?
Could we convert it to bocce? Well, we have a bocce, right? Yeah, we do have.
You don't have bocce.
I thought we did.
We don't have bocce.
I'm getting confused with Hudson County Park and
We
North
use our park and go to picnics and so forth.
There's enough
and so go
Italians
that
here
area
Yes, right.
would appreciate the
play
bocce.
horseshoe.
No, because, who plays horseshoes anymore?
Yeah. But this area...
Irish people.
Used to, they don't do it.
I'll teach you bocce.
But anyway, the thing is that
Bocce.
we do need to expand on the benches, the memorial benches, and this area would be perfect.
I've never seen this many Italians and now bocce. I'm going to cry.
I have one question about the benches. The benches, we're charging the residents $1,000 to get a bench?
1,500.
It's 15, okay.
Mayor,
Now, is that what the cost is?
That's what the cost is, yes. We increased it from $1,000 to $1,500 to cover the cost completely.
Bobby, this isn't part of the the benches are not part of the $9,500. That's donated. The benches are donated.
Benches are donated.
Right, this is just for the improvement of the area.
Correct.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes. The benches are not included in here because they are purchased by the residents.
Good.
Yeah. And we do have a conceptual plan. Again, this item is going to be fully presented at our open space presentation on January 21st. I mean, I can go through it now, but basically, I just wanted to detail it minimally so that you understand what our project is. Again, open space, absolutely. The next item is the resealing of the picnic area. We have a stamped concrete surface in the picnic area that was put in 2005. Over the years, that stamped concrete, which is also stained concrete, has lost its illumination. And again, if you look at the pictures that are in this packet, you can see the difference. We've lost the coating on the top of it, and it really needs to be maintained by putting a sealant on it. And it's preventative maintenance so that we can maintain that area and we don't lose the look of the stamped concrete. And again, I have pictures. I don't know if you've opened your packet, but you can see the difference of the original and now what it looks like. It's lost all of its illumination.
So, if you seal it, are you sealing it the way it's looking right now, or will it refresh the original look?
It'll refresh, but not to the original. Not to the original.
It's more about maintenance, when you seal the concrete. You know a guy in the concrete business.
I know a guy.
It does give you back some look from a decorative standpoint, but it's really more about the protection of the concrete and the fact that concrete should be resealed, just as your driveway is resealed and whatever else. You know, you want to keep it in a public venue.
How often is it recommended that you reseal concrete? Like if we reseal it this
Every
year?
4 years.
Every 4 years. Wow.
Every 4 to 5 years, yeah. It's the same thing with the tennis courts. They're resealing to protect it, prevent any cracking. And with our basketball court, the same thing. We reseal, recoat, possessive prevention.
Okay. I did not know that.
Anyway, so that definitely, again, is maintenance, is prevention. The handball court, the surface around the handball court, it's about the 3rd year we put this in. Basically, we have a cracking of the asphalt that surrounds that handball court surface, and we'd like to replace that. It is lower on our list because it's one of the things that we, again, is prevention.
Vito and I would like to know, is the handball court used?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You go out, usually, there's at least one or two people on either side hitting the ball against, it's tennis, they're playing tennis against that handball court.
That's
They don't
where
play
they set the
handball
food
so
up
much as
there
they
for
hit.
the AOH or whatever, when they
Yeah.
have the food is set up, that's
People do use
the
it.
concrete, the big thing. A lot of people do use that.
But the fact is that you see people hitting the tennis ball against that wall on a regular basis, especially off-season, when it's a nice day and we have our courts are closed, so it is.
Okay,
It
good to
definitely
know.
is.
So they're not playing handball.
And it actually is one of the few in the county, handball court, and it's posted, it's regulation size. Yes.
Any photos of that?
I'm sorry?
Are there any photos
No.
of the handball?
No, I don't have any photos of the handball court.
Bobby, didn't we do some patching or something last year also around the handball? I thought we were going to do some paving on the outside of it. Wasn't that one of the items?
That's this item.
I thought we had split it last year. You were going to do some asphalting, and then there was different with something but the cracks. That's what I seem to remember.
No, we actually did retain it last year as a open space item, and we didn't get the funding for it, so it's about the third year we've applied for it.
I had one question. Are the tennis court trees at an impasse? That whole thing?
Yes,
It's at an impasse?
yes.
It was a two-part.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay. Now, the last item that's on here is the Cherry Blossom Park
Right.
match.
Yep.
When the application was put into the Bergen County funding, it stated that it would be half capital and half open space. Based on the funding, when the contract was issued, that would be determined as where the match would be coming from, but we did mention half open space, half a capital on our application. Now, it is $52,000, it's a big chunk of open space.
Did we get a preliminary allocation from the county on what we're going to maybe get for that project?
I haven't seen anything.
Because the southeast region, we had a meeting on open space. And you didn't have a meeting for this region?
I haven't been notified of any meeting. I'm dying
Because they
to...
were doing, the bid holders were acting in March, because we had the meeting for the Fort Lee region on open space, so you may want to follow up with Mr. Badamarco.
I'm hoping that I get notice of the meetings so that I can attend with Bobby and make a presentation.
Because they cut the regions again. I mean, basically, it was in, I represent Fort Lee in the southeast region on the open space. And it's basically, everybody was cutting 30 or 40% out of their proposals to at least get to even what the allocation was for the region. And so I'm surprised this region didn't meet yet, but I would follow up with the county to see where that stands.
Apologies, Mayor, I have to go to work. Thank you.
I'm going to go in 5 minutes.
So basically, that's our, again, we submitted capital, and the mayor and council determine which is capital and which is open space. If you could notify us that which items that you want us presented as open space on the 21st, we appreciate that.
Okay.
Mayor, you should present everything, and let then the council decide
At the
which
public
pot it
meeting
goes into.
For open space?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't foresee them making a decision before the 21st. 21st is the open space hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't
We
foresee it.
present everything that's on this list.
Yeah.
Okay. And at that time, we'll go into a lot of detail. I didn't want to hold everybody up because we, we can go into showing the pictures and justification and so forth, but, okay?
All right.
I'd like
Bobby.
just to say on the record that I agree with Bobby, at least in principle, that KGB should not be coming out of open space, that it should be coming out of capital, and that it seems reasonable that half of, since we put that in the application for the grant, that half of our portion of Cherry Blossom should be coming capital if we approve it. It would seem reasonable, and we squeezed open space a lot last year. I don't think we continue to squeeze as much as we have been. But, of course, we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Tom has 2 items, Mayor, so you should be
All
correct.
right. Okay, Tom.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Bonjour.
I have 2 items I'd just like to give you an overview on. One is a generator for the library, emergency generator,
And the second item is flood barriers for fire company number 2 and/or the DPW. Let me talk about the generator first.
Can you just tell us where that is on the sheet, Alan?
The first item under Buildings and Grounds says Generator Library, $50,000. And then under Emergency Management, Water Inflated Property Protector for $43,000.
Let's talk about the library first. I've requested an emergency generator for the library in the past. There's a couple of reasons why I think it's important, but from an emergency management point of view, it's not so much to have the library open for the convenience of the residents, which is certainly one of the things that a library is about, but that in terms of having a location for residents to go to during storm situations where there is no power, therefore no heat, no light or air conditioning, depending upon the time of the year. It's also the cooling center. It's been designated the cooling center for the community during extremely hot periods of time, which we've had over the last couple of years, had to make it available in each of the last couple of years. In the past, we had talked about this building being the place where residents would come, and that would be the room over there. In terms of the people that would come, and there's no way to know who would come, but on an emergency basis, perhaps it works, but there really is no kitchen facilities there for even a cup of coffee. There's a room for that to sit, basically. There is a TV there. I guess we could get regular TV on, and I'm not even sure if we can, but that's about it. And if the power is out, now we have this generator, so we don't have that problem. And we designated that, we didn't have a generator that would do everything. But it is not, from my perspective, an ideal location to house people, whether it be 1 night, 2 nights, or whatever. In the case of the library, first of all, it's a one-floor walk-in. It has many locations where people can sit. There's 1,000 things for them to do while they're there in terms of reading or other things. There's a full kitchen. There's a meeting room where updates could be given to them, or whether there's a movie room. I mean, it's an ideal location for people to go during a situation where they have to either leave their particular home because of flooding, there's no heat, or there's no lighting, or whatever. The generator there for the emergencies, as well as just for the normal operating programs for the library. When we had the library down during the last time we lost power for several days, many other libraries throughout Bergen County were open because they had generators. So again, during that period of time, it may not have been the same type of emergency for people to go there, but our library was down, and that was during cold, if I'm not mistaken, last time. I would make the case that I believe every community needs a place. You can't count on county locations. Last time when we had a real cold spell, Bergen Community College filled up in no time whatsoever. The few people that did require assistance or came about assistance, we tried to get them up to the county. There was just no room at the end, more or less, at the county. St. Peter's helped us. They took a couple of people for a few hours, but we had no place to put them. A few people here for a few hours. We just don't have a really good location. My recommendation is that the generator at the library provides for an emergency situation during no power. It also provides for a cooling station during the very hottest times of the year. And it also gives the library a 100% operation, whatever they would need for the community. It would be pretty much the last major public building, I guess, without a library. I don't think the Bill Firehouse has it. This building has it, BBW has it. So it would be the last emergency. The Hill Square has it. it would complete our emergency ability to function at full potential for the community. So I met with Rob, and we looked at it. It's almost a two-part process if we go forward with this. The generator itself is probably what I'm talking about now, and Rob could probably help me out with this next item. But if you ever go down to the basement of the library, aside from being very, very crowded and so on and so forth, there is electrical work all over that place. There is no one location where the electrical work has been done in a consistent, thought-out process. There are panels in multiple locations, cables going, unbelievable. Yeah, it gets one to talk about.
I'm sure every piece of work was fine.
You should go there.
Right.
It's a matter of and that's one of the problems, is where can you fit the equipment if you need a transfer switch down there, because that's going to be tight to put it in. Again, you don't need a service like you have here. You probably need maybe a 60 kVA public company. But in terms of, not emergency management, but in terms of the library, the electrical system and the way it's set up down there is an accident about waiting to happen, to tell you the truth. It's just a piecemeal over the years without any connecting thoughts.
Good.
Mayor, proposal is for 80 to 120 kV, and so if we went with the 60, just hypothetically, not saying that we are, how much would you think it would reduce?
It's not a huge savings.
Not a
Well,
huge savings.
We just did a 20 kW in Fort Lee, and it was 40,000, and that's off state contract. It's about 2 to 1, so if you're looking at 100 kVA, it's going to be a $200,000 project.
The thing is that you could probably get away with
And if you have electrical work on top of it, you're going to add another
be a bigger cost.
30 or 40%.
Right.
So I think if you're looking at 100 kVA, you have to budget at least 200,000 to take the electrical, and
The bigger problem there is definitely the electrical.
because that happened with this building also. We had some electrical hang-ups when we did this generator, and that was a problem.
So then this,
We definitely don't need anything.
No, but it's a
50,000 is not realistic.
no.
Because the electrical work sounds like it's going to be the biggest.
I was just
Yeah.
talking about.
Is that really that bad?
The generator, 200,000.
If I may, just at some point, the work is going to have to be done about the electrical, even if we do nothing with the generators, because any future work that would be done down there, or any repairs that would be done down there, if you do it in pieces, I think it would probably be a much more expensive process to do it that way, rather than to redo the electrical system within the building. And what is there three? How many additions on it? I think it's at least...
Two, right?
And that's what happens.
The main
when
one
you
and then the
do-
back one in 1970s?
So
But-
2 or 3. If you go down there, again, it's...
What's generating the need to redo the electrical? I mean, is there a safety issue, or is it just that it's sloppily and piecemeal done?
Well, I think, again, when they did all the additions, they just kept adding boxes, but when you go down there, you also have the feeds for the AC, I guess it is, the feed, so you have, the space is cramped. And they just kept adding on the walls. There's not a lot of room down there.
But is there a fire or
That I
safety
don't
issue?
know.
So there's not an urgent need, there's just a desire to clean up the mess?
If you're going to install a transfer switch, it's just, the space down there is limited. I don't know if you can physically hang a transfer switch and then tie it back.
We could put one outside.
Yeah, we could put an exterior...
You can put it outside.
Yeah.
That's an option. But you still, at some point, have to get it to that room.
Yes.
There's all different sub-panels. It's interesting the way it was.
Well, it makes sense then to get somebody to look at it from an engineering standpoint to see what needs to be done, to see what you need to do to get to make it even generator ready.
Right.
But the transfer switch will work off the main feed to the
Yes.
generator. I mean, it's got all these panoply of panels come after.
It's whether, it depends, yeah, if they're connected right to the...
I mean, obviously, if a generator needs to be designed, this is not something you call Caterpillar and say, send me a generator, but when we do the design, then we'll find out what is the optimum sequence of paneling. Yeah, I appreciate the mess of paneling. That's the price we have to pay for sometimes doing a quasi-residential job in a commercial building.
Right.
But, so Tom, I think you made an excellent case for the need for a community center in this town. So I thank you for that.
I agree there as well.
I thank you for that.
Mr. Councilman.
Mr. Councilman. But that notwithstanding, 50,000 is not a realistic figure, so...
When I put that number in, that was for the generator only, and I was thinking about specific generation so that people would be able to go in there, there would be sufficient lighting.
Oh, no. I believe the library needs its own backup power. This is, to me, emergency power is the power that feeds the exit lights and maybe some other life safety systems in my world. So, yeah, definitely you need a generator. It's not going to be 50, it's going to be a lot more than 50. But for us to consider it, I would like to see what is a reasonable, real figure. Because if we move ahead with 50 and then we find out it's going to be 100, and then maybe by the time we're done it's 150.
One of the things that before I came here today, I realized the size of the project, and it might be one of these things where it would be phased, where perhaps we put together the entire package and then do it over a period of 2 years, get the electrical done first, because to go and put in what we have here, something like that, we don't need that much, but a first-rate generator and not do the electrical probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Do the electrical phase one and then have the generator be the match to the electrical in phase two. So that might be, from a budgetary point of view, that might be easier to handle than trying to do it all in one thing. But if the rates are real good, then maybe doing it all at one time while the rates are significantly low at this point, that's better. That's the decision for you folks to make. But either way, even if we don't go with a generator, I think the library's electrical system needs to be upgraded, fixed, and whatever it needs. And that's really not part of my role here, but it's part of, because of the generator. And I think the generator is needed. It'll be the last public building and we complete all our public buildings with generation, and it can be used for a variety of things, from sheltering to other, the community center and so on. So that would be my request, and if you want, I can work it out, so work with Bob and work it into a phase, come back in a week or two, and give you a projected price to phase it over a 2-year period or whatever, do the electrical first, then do the
When it comes to construction projects, I really don't want to see faces that are based on whoever is going to be sitting here in the future, because a construction project definitely needs a start and an end, and you are locked into that time frame. Of course, things happen, time frame could be a little variable, but you know what it is. We can't start doing, in my opinion, we can't start doing things half away, and then maybe in the future we'll figure out the other half, and meanwhile we're going to think that the first half that was done needs to be changed to accommodate the second. The whole thing is to be thought out as a single project.
Well, maybe phasing was the wrong word. I would say the whole project would be on paper, with drawings, everything.
And then phase the work.
Done over a period of...
I just think to get an idea of the cost, this is just the beginning part of the exploration.
But to get the idea of the cost for this specific item, someone, an electrical engineer, needs to go there, evaluate what you have,
right,
and then come up with what is the optimal solution, keeping budget in mind at all time, to resolve this issue and eventually end up with a cleaned electric paneling system and an emergency generator. I mean, to do the emergency generator, you don't need to clean up the panels. The generator goes in after the meter, you do the transfer switch and connects to the main feed. So whatever comes after that, it'll still keep working. So the other thing is, okay, you do this, now you really want to clean up the electrical, I'll use the word mess in a nice way, that apparently, allegedly is there. I haven't seen it.
I would take their word that it was probably pretty bad.
But that doesn't mean it's not safe, and it doesn't mean it's not compliant either.
Yeah,
So,
I don't really see the point in a tight budget, just fixing, I don't know if the word fix, I haven't been convinced that fixed is an appropriate word for the electrical problem. I think the electrical problem's sloppy, maybe it's a little bit unprofessional, but if it doesn't have a safety issue, doesn't have a fire issue, and if we don't approve the generator, then I don't think we should approve the electrical updating, because it's functioning, it's working, and we have a lot of priorities, and we certainly aren't going to go with $5,139,509 worth of capital for 2014. So I don't know if, so I just throw that out as, I'm thinking out loud.
The electrical will need to be addressed if, when this project comes to fruition, we decide we need to locate the transfer switch and a couple of other boxes inside.
Yeah.
Then you're forced, because then we're subject to very specific clearances that we need to provide around those panels.
If the council doesn't mind seeing that switch outside,
in the back of the...
then it's a much easier.
Put it
If you
outside.
want to mount that equipment in that room, it's very, very, very tight. I don't think you're going to be able to do it.
Look at an exterior switch.
I totally get that. One of the things that, even with this generator, that they've never been clear in my mind, because I'm not an expert or even pretend to have, cursory knowledge that would be sufficient to understand these type of projects, is what is the benefits and what are the liabilities to having a switch outside? I mean, why switch inside versus outside? If it's always easier on the outside, why put it on the inside? I don't know the inside. I was hoping maybe you could comment.
Security for one.
Security, weather.
I mean, some sort of socio-economic factor come into play as if you want to put it outside or not, and certainly aesthetics is one. If you don't have access to what is the rear of a building or the side of a building, then also you want to limit the length of what is known as the MC cables, because those are extremely expensive copper conduits that you get charged like thousands of dollars per foot. So you really want, and becomes all part of the study to do a generator to a building.
Okay, that helps.
But there are exterior rated transfer switches.
There's one here?
Yeah, I know there's one here, and it didn't seem to be a problem, so I didn't know.
Well, the problem, again, if you see how big that is, we had no room inside either to...
Yeah, no.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It usually comes down to a space problem.
So if you can't accommodate the space inside, you just put it outside as your default.
Or try to coordinate the room that's there and try to fix the panels that are in there in order to mount the equipment inside. That's basically the choice.
Forgive me for saying this, but I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse. I think that this request, we need to go back to the drawing board with this request, if the request is going to be made, because it's larger than just the hardware now. We're talking, this piece of hardware, we're talking about a bigger project.
You need 150.
Right, so I would request that if we're going to continue to talk about this request, we need to have more information.
We forgive you.
Excuse me.
Mr.
So I think we're having a lot of conversation about a lot of things we don't have enough information about.
No, that's a good point. It's an excellent point.
I don't know.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just to, Frank, going back, you said that there's no other facilities for basically the aid and comfort of the citizens during a storm. What about the school buildings? Are they equipped to handle this type of situation?
They don't have generators.
I haven't reached out to the schools, never thought that it was an appropriate location for them. I mean, I've had some people over here, they would need Lutheran church, you would need, I've had them down in St. Peter's
You
for
need
a
a power
while.
plant. You would need a turbine, probably.
The river.
If they don't have the facilities to operate during a storm. They don't.
The Riverdale school system has generators to take care of the emergency circuits.
Okay.
So night lights, exit lights, this type of, which is by law, you have to have those backed up. But there is no, when we did the the bigger $30 million project, generator fell victim to trying to scale down the project a little bit.
Okay, that's just...
But all the work is in place. See, that would be all the panels are nicely laid out. That would be, you go in, find the money, capitalize the generator, and then you have it.
Anybody of you would want to take a walk through, get glad to meet you there, and I'm sure Ron, if he has the opportunity, come down, just so you see what it looks like. I hadn't been down there in years myself.
Yeah, sure.
When I went down, I was very surprised at how tight and how it's all over the place. It's not like, okay, here's all the power. It's just all over the whole level. So,
Tom, I heard that there might be some, like FEMA money or something like that to support putting generators in certain public buildings?
I'm already sitting on a generator request from FEMA. They haven't turned it down, but I haven't received, we did receive some money, but I don't think that was for the generator, that was for something else. But I still have an open request out, and every time I go to an emergency management meeting, I ask about it, and they say they still haven't made the final decisions of who's getting what funding and who's not.
And that's for...
That was for emergency generator.
Was that for damage to the Company 2 generator?
Yeah, it was on the Company 2 one at that point in time. That's what I did.
That's what the paperwork was put in for.
Right.
Not for
the library.
Not for a new generator.
No, it was to replace that. Which we already put into our budget, and we were hoping that the timing would be...
Sure.
Yeah, FEMA moves at FEMA's pace.
Can I ask a related question, Alan? You gave us this sheet here, okay, which is titled Consolidated Budget Appropriation, Debt and Capital. And for 2014, you put down $1,897,607 with a CIF of $331.9 million. But here the number on this sheet, which is the our capital program for 2014, I have a number of $5,139,509. Can you help me to understand the relationship between this 1.8 million and this 5.1?
Yes. The horizontal schedule reflects what you would have in your budget in 2014 related to capital. So this year, the only thing coming from the capital schedule that would be on this horizontal sheet is that 331,914, which appears at the very bottom of the first column on the vertical sheet.
I see it now.
Okay. Now that's a combination of those two columns, $82,041 and $249,873. So that is what you would have to put in your budget for these projects related to either fully fund them or to raise a down payment.
I get that.
Now, the rest of the cost is a bonded amount. You pass an ordinance, and then as we did those projects, we would raise the cash, and it would filter back into future budgets, one form or another. Now, the only thing I haven't included at this point is the budgeted items of $30,000 and $4,012. I'll wait until you make a decision on those before I put it on the horizontal schedule.
And just one more, could you just clarify again? I understand now the CIF number, the .331 million, the third of a million that's there. But the 1.8, well, it's really 1.9 when you round it. Can you just clarify where that number is coming from?
Those are all the accounts that are in the municipal budget this year.
Okay.
So if you go back to the position summary as a line item, you'll see the capital improvement fund amount, you'll see the bond principal payments, the bond interest payments.
Thank you.
So those are real numbers that you're dealing with right now.
And then, Alan, just...
Thank you, that helps a lot.
To go one more step further then, assuming that, like we always talk about this on finance, we know that every year certain bonds drop off as we add new, and that's why our level stays basically the same. But if we don't do that, assuming all the bonded amount stays the same, we'd be adding another $528,000 to the budget on an annual basis to pay for all those bonds based on the $5 million request, correct? That would be what the annual payment will be for 10 years on just these.
Yeah, on the back sheet, you're referring to this
The $528,000.
$528,000. That would be your cost each year
So
over 10
that would be
years. if
on
you
the
were to
back
bond
sheet
out.
of that capital sheet. Yeah.
Okay.
The $528,000.
Where's...
In the back
I
of the
see it now, yes.
That would be our additional annual cost to the budget going forward. So you're adding $500,000 a year, assuming no other bonds dropped off, which they do, but that's the second part of it. So it's it's not only the $331 we're putting in this year for the down payments, you'd have to assume another $500,000 in principal and interest payments going forward for the next 10 years.
Okay, that helps.
If we did the full $5 million.
Tom, can we move on to this second item, the water inflated
Have a handout here.
property protector?
Put it around. A little bit of history for everyone here, going back to the mid-1970s. Fire company number 2 in particular, and to some degree the DPW has been flooded multiple times. In company 2's case, we've had to leave the building once in every decade since 1970s and twice in one of them. The change in the river, the change in the types of storms that we're having, and everything that goes along with that. If it hits at high tide and there's a heavy rains or whatever, we've had water as high as 3 or 4 feet inside the firehouse, and surprisingly lower than that in the DPW, but it's because they're higher overall than where company 2 is. So with that in mind, I started looking at different ways of possibly securing the building. I had one item or one company get back to me prior to this week, and that's one that you have in your book and their system, but this one I was able to get some information on, and I actually was able to print it out last night. And basically what it is, it's movable. You can put it up, you can put it down. It's mounted on a frame on each side of the doors at the DPW and the doors at fire company number 2. And when you need these barriers, they go up, there's a seal between each one of them, so that as you lay them down, depending upon the height that you need to go, the seal between each one of them and the weight and the way they're set up gives the sealing that you need. Is it 100%? They don't come out and say that, but even if we had to have some pumps in the locations to pick up any minor water that would come in, we could do that. The beauty of it is you don't have to leave them up. From everything I've read about it, 2 people can take 1 bar off at a time, or 1 bar up at a time as needed. The DPW is a much larger building, obviously, than company number 2, and it hasn't had the kind of flooding that company 2 has. If I was to categorize what the real need is immediately, it would be our company number 2. We've redone the kitchen so far 3 times, or several times, because of that. And we're just out of there when it happens. So this seems to be an opportunity to secure the building, at least during the high side of the flood.
I'll ask the borough engineer to come back up again, if he would. Just to put the information out there. This is to seal the exterior doors and garages where we've been sandbagging the last couple of storms. But as you said, it's not a perfect system, and in fact, we have other points of entry. We have drainage we have water drainage systems that go out, we have sewer systems that go out, and I think in the past we've gotten some penetration there. There really is no way to eliminate those except if we have some gate valves on them. So I don't want to leave the impression that this is the ultimate solution, it would substitute for floods, but it would certainly, it might limit, and it might be a better solution than sandbagging each time, less manpower or...
Point of view, yeah. It takes hours and hours to put the bags together.
Michael?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't likely think you'd hear from me about this, but I've seen this system installed and in place and holding back standing water. A relative that has changed careers due to the demand of this type of system, and I've seen it's simply installed, simply put into place when in need, and I've seen it holding back standing water against the barrier. So it does work very well.
At Company 2, there are, how many bays?
3 bays.
3 bays,
Right.
plus there's a door, right? How many
There's
doorways?
one door on the front and there's one door on the side, but the doors, the sandbagging of the doors, we could probably handle that. It's not a big task. You're talking about a 36-inch door, but the sandbagging 3 large bays takes hours, filling the bags, putting the bags in and so on, and it's at best about 55 to 75%.
Where would you store the system when it was not in use? You'd have to have like a shed or something to put all
Well, we
these boxes.
already have a shed that we have so much stuff in that we could probably reorganize to some degree, but I don't know exactly how much room this takes. I don't know whether it comes in a system that, mounts, you store it in when you're not using it.
These logs have to be as wide as the bay, right?
Yeah, there would be a little bit wider on both sides of the bay.
What are the bays, like 12 feet wide?
Yeah, that's between 11 and 12.
You'd need a brand
It
new...
would be somewhere in the back room, in the back parking lot, one of those places we would wind up putting it.
Is your shed 12 feet?
No, but I'm saying we would probably just put something back there and specific. I mean, they can stay out. We have, our generator just has a shed roof over it. That's all it has now. But these things would probably be able to be stored outside.
They're aluminum, so they won't corrode.
But, Mayor,
Where did you come up with the 40,850?
That was the first company that responded back to me. Like I said, I've just come across these in the last day or two, so I don't have the price on this.
Yeah.
But if you want...
I spoke to these guys in Atlantic City. There's 2 companies. There's this, and I forgot, I don't know if this is the one I spoke to. And I'm going to throw a number, I don't remember, but I think the money you're talking about is probably similar to what you put in for that other system. I thought he said it was about 15,000 a bay.
Okay, right.
But, don't quote me on that, but that's the number I seem to remember in my head. But, there was another company too that had the same similar product, so at least you can get costs from 2 of them and see if...
40,000, when I put that in last year, actually, is when I had that number. That was primarily for company number 2. That did not count the DPW at that point.
Yeah, no, but I think that's the same order of magnitude that he had quoted me, on the floor. He was just telling me for typical, and he mentioned a couple of towns around here who he sold these to, so you could probably find out who has them. And
the damage has been well over the $40,000 now, and I would guess in company 2 over the years.
Oh, yeah. Is that $40,000 that we paid or $40,000 that came from insurance?
Well, we recovered from insurance and FEMA. I'm not going to say we recovered 100%, but, FEMA only pays 75%. The state doesn't pay anything, and insurance will only pay certain amounts over deductibles, so...
My concern is also this, the chiefs gave me tours as liaison before Sandy, before the other storms, and in company number 2, there is a storm drain right in the middle of the bay. 3, yeah, but there's a very obvious one right in the middle of the bay, and it had drawn my attention. I said, well, if we sandbag, could water come up through there? And they had said, yes, it could, and it has. So my question, I guess, Mr. Costa, is we'd have to put a gate valve, I think is what it was suggested. What kind of costs would we be ballpark be talking about? Because to put up these barriers and not put up gate valves for the areas of egress, other areas of egress of water, what would be a ballpark for that, generally speaking? Because it makes no sense to pay for one and let water come in the...
size of the pipe, it's probably...
This is a floor drain?
8-inch?
Yeah.
So it's an 8-inch? Yeah, that's not, that wouldn't be a lot.
Cut the floor, you'd have to have an access panel.
So that's like 10,000, 50,000?
Probably, yeah.
Probably 10.
10 is probably...
10, and that would take care of all the pipes?
It would only be that one pipe, if that's the only floor drain, that was...
There's only one.
That's the only point of
Basically, you would
entry.
have to cut the floor and come in...
So it's only an additional
Small
cost
manhole, so you could just
somewhere...
But Rob, is there an area drain in the driveway too?
No.
No?
Outside in
Yeah,
front,
no.
everything slopes out to the street.
Here's an engineering question that we've wrestled with in the past, is if you cut that drain off, are you creating so much pressure underneath that concrete floor that now that water doesn't have any place to go and it's going to cause problems with the concrete floor?
You mean cracking and rising?
Right.
No, because that's a pipe, that's a drain, so that's going out right to the storm system. that storm line will stay surcharged, but it won't come into the building. The same idea when we tell people that the check valves on the sewer lateral, it's the same concept.
Well, the water has come up from the drains in the past. The primary water was what came through the doors. I mean, you could see the water coming up, but it wasn't like, that kind of thing.
Right.
And the last time what we did is we used a system, we put it together ourselves, of 3 or 4 sandbags into those holes and so on and so forth. We kept almost everything out. I mean, it was trickling out, but certainly if we were able to slow it down that much with sandbags, we could probably, because it's not under force, because at that point, the water out in the street is pretty high, but it's just a static pressure. It's not like...
That's how I was wondering how much pressure there was through that line.
More of a static pressure.
Okay.
So how long does it take to install one of these?
Well, from what I was told, and I didn't have the opportunity...
It's minutes. It's minutes he was talking about.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Two men?
Yeah, he said it's very simple. They slide together. It's like
The mounting bolts are left in place on the pillars between.
Fixed to the wall.
Yeah, and the 2 guys lift it up, they put it in, slide it down, and you're done. So, but it's, like I said, it's each decade so far, we've been out of there once or twice since the 70s. And we've had to redo the kitchen. I mean, the worst one, and that was Irene, I think that was the worst one. We had almost 4 feet of water throughout the whole building, all the way to the back of the building, in the kitchen, everything else. And that was even right over the top of the sandbags. We never expected the water to go that high. It was the highest it was ever. So, I mean, I will, if you want, I can put a proposal for these folks and with the height we want to go and everything else, and try to get a more definitive price from them.
I would at least get the price, yeah, so we can, again, are we looking at 40,000 or 100,000, and then we'll have to make that judgment if that's something we want.
So you said it was about 15,000.
That's what I recall, but I said, don't quote me on it. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, because I know I wrote some notes down when I met with the guy.
The person wasn't that committal here. He said somewhere between 12 and 20.
Pity, so I'm probably in the same ballpark. Then. That's what he told me. Because when you deal with these vendors, you've been in Atlantic City, and you got to tell me how much it costs. Don't tell me how great it is. I got to know how much it costs. And they always hem and haw, and I said, I'm looking for a budget number, 10,000 or 100, tell me what the range is. So that's when he said, count on 15 per bay.
DPW has a similar process to Company 2. It seems to come and go faster there. I guess it's just because of the position of the river. We're lower where they were higher. If you wish, what I'll do is, as a separate, I'll ask them, I'll do just wait through the doors down at DPW, and give them the 2 pieces and get a pricing on both, so this way we'll have...
They may give us a discount for both too, so...
But those walls, those columns
are
will support it down at DPW, there'll be no problem with that. So I don't know if I'll have it by this next week, or within the next week.
Yeah, whenever you get it.
All right?
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Alan, I'm just going to leave this here. There should be enough for everybody. This is just an addition to the operating. And I know you're doing capital today, so this guy you'll have.
Rob, we have you here to address a couple of items. The first thing we have is the Voorhees storm system this week. So after this comes around, we want to have
your sheet.
Tom, do you have that one?
I think I did.
Yeah, just pass it along.
I didn't realize you were looking for it. If any of you want to come down and get a look at the location I'm talking about, just let me know. To show you how we would set them up down there and everything.
Where it says infrastructure, Rob, C5 is the first one, Voorhees new storm sweep.
No. You jump right in. Yes.
Starting with those, just give us an overview of what we have here.
When we bid out the project, the original one was to put the inlets on Voorhees. There were 2 alternates. One was basically a sweep to connect the pipe that's in the Baker Street connected to a 48-inch or 60-inch pipe that runs behind the houses. So you'd have to build a chamber and ultimately connect it over. Using a number from the alternate, and this is probably a little bit in addition to that, that would be roughly $60,000. Let's go down to the next one, Alan, the head walls on Valley. Again, I looked at that. It's not actually the head wall, it's just the decorative walls on top. So I think that number could probably come down substantially. If you wanted to fix that, you could actually, if you wanted to, you could probably just cut them down and eliminate them.
These will be, we're going to have you back on the 25th, if you would, and we'll have John Lynch here.
Okay.
So some of these did come from sewer subcommittee, some you're familiar with, some he has some input on, so it'd probably be best if we bring you back and have the two of you here at the same time. So,
Rob, what's the issue with the head walls on Valley?
They're deteriorating. I guess what they did, it's just like a little knee wall that's up on, if you go down on Valley, similar to what's on
Elm?
We named it a pump station. The two decorative blue walls that are up there that we put brick on, that's all it is. But it has nothing to do with the actual...
So it's not the structural of the wall?
To me, it didn't look like it was part of the culvert. So you could probably, if you wanted to, you could probably just saw cut them out. Or if you want to rebuild them, just rebuild them. Elm Avenue, I mean, we've talked about this for many, many years. If you want to put in some money, obviously, to do some drainage, put in some more catch basins, because there's areas on Elm, after a rainstorm, you just can't get the water to move on Elm, and you have ponding situations on Elm.
We talked about this before.
Well, I think we put in two that eliminated a lot
Yes,
of the issues
on
there.
Voorhees, but we have it at Concord, Greenway, Madison, or Monroe, at least those three. There's serious ponding on the east, northeast corners of each of those. So I think we need inlets at least at those three and bring them over to the ditch.
So you have to install inlets and then install piping to get it back to the opposite side of the street.
Particularly, I said, the one at the Concord, the one at Greenway, they're persistent and they're pretty large puddles. So there's an icing issue. So it needs to be addressed, I think.
And again, I mean, I've talked about this over the years. If you don't do this, the water obviously gets underneath the pavement. Based on the weather that we've had, I think get ready when this actually thaws out, because I think you're going to see a lot of roads that are going to deteriorate, and it's inevitable. When you have 0-degree temperatures, you have 60-degree temperatures, you have 2 or 3 inches of rain, and you have these cycles that are amazing this year. I think you're going to see that the roads are going to deteriorate very quickly. The ditch, again, I think I spoke to the council on this. After the Voorhees, we cleaned out the actual storm sewer, the actual ditch from Kensington south to Wayne Avenue could use some cleaning. And again, it's up to the council. I don't know if we could get the mosquito commission in there. We could try. I don't know how successful we would be with that. But at a minimum, it's very difficult to get in there. You could probably do it with National Waterman. They could probably suck the dirt out, possibly do it that way, or we could try to lower a piece of equipment in there. But again, this is...
So in terms of the two potential follow-ups to the Voorhees project would be this or that sweep. Would we get a better benefit on cleaning out that head wall or putting the sweep in? Or do you see them as mutually exclusive?
Again, the bigger problem down there is you have now that it's cleaned out, there's actually a 2 or 2.5 foot jump between the inverted pipe and the actual ditch elevation. So no matter what you do there, you're always going to have that.
Are you saying that there's 2.5 feet of standing water in the sewer line before it gets to the outlet to run into the ditch?
Correct. The ditch is actually 2.5 feet higher than the pipe. I wasn't the engineer.
Okay.
Back then.
There's no way of lowering the ditch?
You couldn't, I don't think, the problem is there's actually concrete when you come out of the pipe, so there's actually concrete that's 2.5 feet high.
Yeah, but I mean, removing the concrete and lowering the ditch, that's not a solution?
Well,
That's
I think,
not possible?
I don't know if you would ever get it down 2.5 feet because you got the invert of the next pipe at Wayne.
Oh.
But to maintain it, possibly take the concrete out and build maybe almost like a sluiceway.
Mhm.
Even though it would come up slightly, at least that might give you a little bit more of a benefit, at least you could maintain it. So maybe you wouldn't have all the debris. So maybe that would be part of the project, maybe that's the best way to go. And then we could...
Is that dead end at that part of the street? The downfall on Voorhees,
Voorhees goes
down
through
to
the
Elm.
Baker Street.
Down to Elm, right?
No, Elm cuts into the Oak
Okay, the Oak Street.
Street. the
Okay,
Baker
so it
Street.
goes past Elm. It goes past Elm down towards Oak.
Correct.
Is it dead end there?
Then it makes a right-hand turn, comes out to Kensington, makes a left, and then makes a right. That's when they put it back into the actual ditch.
Storm sewer ditch.
The open ditch.
Didn't you say we needed to reconnect it at some point? Wasn't there a piece of it that wasn't connected, and therefore...
Right, there's a piece that ran behind the houses that is not connected. So you have the main pipe coming south, and then there's actually a 60-inch pipe that goes into a 48-inch pipe that runs behind the homes. But that piece was never connected.
That's the sweep he was talking about.
That's the sweep.
Right, that's the sweep.
Right.
yeah.
So the sweep is to connect to that...
That would be that. And then the ditch has a lot of debris in it, a lot of silt, so that really needs to be cleaned out.
Was Rob, what he thinks the priority would be, and where we get the best benefit? Do we do the stream part and the dredging part, or is the sweep going to be? But I think the dredging part and taking care of that head wall is probably more of a...
I mean, if you want to continue to attack the problem, you're probably better off doing both.
Yeah,
And then maybe take it out somewhere else.
Yeah.
But again, that's up to the
Now-
council.
The idea of creating that, whatever you called it...
Well, I'm thinking just, I
What'd
don't
you
think we
call
can get the ditch down 2.5 feet. I don't think you could do it without, again, because you have very steep side slopes.
Because I'm
Very
thinking that if we don't
limited
do something with this 2-foot difference, then all we're doing is creating a loggerhead, and it will back up from there.
Well, that's what's happening, and then what happens, as you get, obviously, dirt into the system, over time it settles out, and then we're back to where we were prior to cleaning.
But we shouldn't get back there, because that was...
Well, it's been a year.
That was 40-plus years of not cleaning.
Right.
So hopefully we won't get back to that point. And we don't know really whether... we don't know how much of a benefit we've gotten from cleaning this far. We really haven't had that many heavy downpours,
Wait
right?
till the summer.
Yeah, so we'll know in the summer. No, but we'll know if whether by cleaning that, we've actually fixed the problem, too. 'Cause even with that differential, if the problem's fixed, it's a maintenance issue. It doesn't have to be permanently fixed.
Is it currently, either of you can tell me, is it currently on scheduled DPW to do something every year, every 2 years?
Not the lines, no.
So we're talking about a maintenance that...
Catch basins, they do, not the lines.
Yeah.
But this line does need maintenance, so we'll be back there unless we put it into some sort of schedule, or am I incorrect?
You could check, I would probably recommend TVing it after a year, see if we got anything, but it's going to
Yeah, but
take, it'll take several years for this to...
I'm just thinking that in 3 years, or 4 years, or 6 years from now, there's going to be a new council, and no one's going to remember this conversation, and if there isn't some sort of memorializing the fact that...
Alan will be around.
Yep.
I'm going for the
And
full
John should know,
pension.
you could talk to John about just making sure it's on a regular schedule for TV.
But I'm wondering if the council should direct DPW engineer and...
Councilman, we all know what should be done. The question is, how do we get things like this into a budget where right now we're $800,000
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm
You're
talking
absolutely
about-
right.
I'm talking about, I mean, when you guys cleared it all out, you came, you and John,
It was 40 or 50.
you guys were like, oh, we couldn't believe it, and then there's this pipe that's not connected, and who remembered? That's what I'm addressing right now. I'm not addressing the cost right now. I'm addressing, or asking to someone, both of you to address, and John, to, in some way, memorialize the fact that this has to be revisited as a conversation piece for the council every certain number of years. I would not know
It could be
why.
incorporated into our stormwater management plan,
Yeah, it could be.
and that's probably the best way to do it.
Yes, something, so that the council doesn't say...
Make sure it's memorialized in the stormwater management plan, so every year when you do your, they do their annual, at least it's an item on their checklist to make sure that they've looked at it, to know that it's there. It doesn't mean you have to do it. but
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or put a line item into the budget, $5,000 a year.
Okay.
Well, we've talked about that. but that's-
We have a sewer budget.
No, but I'm saying...
We have a line item
Right.
for cleaning, TV.
But specifically for that region.
But I think Tom's point's well taken, is that this section of the stormwater system has not been monitored as closely as it probably should have until we got this massive problem.
Right.
So I think the auspice to do that is under the stormwater management plan, and just say as part of our,
Yeah.
that's a document we need to have by DEP rules anyway, and it's just to make sure that, and then when you go through your annual review, did we check the Oak Street, it's so at least it's on somebody's radar. I think that's what you're trying to do, is make sure it stays
That's all I want.
on somebody's radar.
Do
And
we
if
need a
it's money,
motion
that's
for
another
that?
issue.
I'll update
No, I think it's
the plan.
to modify the plan, because they do an annual update to the plan anyway, so it's just,
I mean, if we can't afford it, we can't afford it.
well, no, but
at least
it's not
we're
about
talking
reporting it, it's about
we're
putting it in the
selling
plan as a
something.
maintenance item to make sure it's...
Or, again, we'll put a very slight number into the budget
Yes.
over X amount of years, and then you have it there. You don't have the equipment to clean that out. The vac truck, it will not clean that pipe out. You need a much larger piece of equipment in order to clean it.
Yeah.
So it would have to be an outside service unless the town is going to purchase a much larger vac truck, which wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, that issue, I think, is a later issue. I just want to make sure that we don't leave this moment without having it memorialized somewhere, so that it comes up on an annual basis for discussion.
Alan, you can put it on the sewer agenda, and we'll make sure that we...
Okay. All right. Road resurfacing.
I guess road resurfacing, if you want to do every single street, Alan put it in a spreadsheet, came up with the numbers close to $800,000. Last year, we did $150,000, prior year, $150,000. Years ago, it went to zero. Prior to that, it was around $300,000. So I think it's really up to the council as far as roads. So don't look at what roads, so to speak, but I think the best thing is just set a dollar amount that you'd like to see done. And I
But
think-
what roads does it, based on what ratings does this cover? Is it the worst,
This is...
the worst of the worst? Is it,
John Lynch does this.
so we need John to tell us...
I mean, he runs around the town more, obviously more than we do. So every year since I've been here, 14 or 15 years, he comes up with a list. It tries to stay non-political, that the councilman street gets done or the mayor street gets done. It's supposed, it's hands-off. I mean, basically the need, what roads he feels are in
Rob.
the worst shape.
They get done when they're out of office.
But no, my question is, does 800,000 represent the worst of the worst, and then next year we're looking at going back to a more as a maintenance number, or is this 800,000 this year, 800,000 next year? We don't know what
Again,
what category of roads is he...
I don't know the categories that John has. Here's the list he came up with. Alan put it together. He said, we're going to put in for 800 or 778,000. But again, 150, if that number could come up slightly, I think that's where we need to get to at least start getting ahead of the curve. And I think this year, with the weather that we've had, I think you're going to see the roads deteriorate a little bit faster.
But again, and I guess we'll have to ask John this, this would just be assuming like a mill and repave, it's not taking into account any drainage problems or any curb or sidewalk issues, so we'd have to
And
look at...
again, that's what we've talked about for many, many years. A lot of the town lacks a lot of drainage, and that just makes the equation go a little bit faster. If the curbs aren't in great shape, the water gets underneath the pavement, you pop the pavement open, and it speeds up everything. It should be a 10-year plan. You would try to get a 10-year life expectancy out of a roadway, depending on the traffic, obviously. But I don't think you get that at this point. And then if you use the new pavements with the amount of recycled, also, Alan, you used the number close to $3 for milling. I just did a job recently in Saddlebrook. Our number came in a little bit higher because...
Milling, really?
Yeah, because you know what? It's very difficult to get rid of the millings now. And the state only allows a small percentage to put back in the asphalt to recycle it. So now it's difficult to actually get rid of the product. So the price of the milling has gone up.
Why does the state limit that?
Because they don't feel, I guess, it's, that the asphalt is going to, I guess, maintain itself,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
I think it's like 15%, if I'm not
I thought
mistaken.
asphalt was 100% recycled.
No. I think they only allow 15% recycled material in the asphalt.
Now, you have these companies now who are taking those millings, though, and making those pellets for, maybe their market for it, but I don't know if there's enough companies doing that.
Pellets for what?
They, for like repairs. Now, they have these little package systems now where they recycle the millings, these
Right,
little
and they
pellets,
sh- and they
and then they
ship it
give you a
back
little
in.
little hopper, and you can reconstitute them to make asphalt, and it's usually for potholes. But you
Alan,
have to use the millings.
can you just refresh my memory, the ranking on the top? Which way does it go?
Closer to 100, the better the street is. So once the street is repaved, the next day it has 100
Okay,
ranking.
so it's 100 down. The worst ones are the lower numbers.
But these are come from, I think, a 2007 update of the plan. So even these numbers are dated. That's why you have to hear from John Lynch as to what the current
Okay,
state is.
John comes out and
Yeah.
he actually comes up with the list. And again, he's on the roads
Yeah, I know.
console.
I went to one of the seminars at the League was, doing a road study, and they have all these computer models and software you could buy, and we don't have any of that. But they were talking about the correct program to have is not one where you just repave. It's putting a third towards repaving, a third towards crack filling and sealing to get more life out of your street, and then a third for like patching.
The problem in our community is most of the roads that were constructed were penetration-based, which they put down stone, they sprayed asphalt down, and they put an overlay on top. So if you mill 2 inches, you're kicking up rocks. If you mill 3 inches, the roads are not full-depth asphalt roadways in our town. So again, and that also speeds things up as that they fall apart quicker.
So the thicker the asphalt, the longer the road will have?
Absolutely. Like a county spec would be 8 inches of DGA, dense graded aggregate, so with stone dust down. 6 inches of a stabilized base, a big aggregate with the asphalt, and then a wearing surface, 2 inches.
So if we had actually full-depth curbs, too, we could just overlay,
We could,
but we don't have full-depth,
We
yeah.
don't.
What is full depth curve?
Usually, this curb is supposed to be 6-inch reveal. County spec is 8-inch.
Right.
If you had 6 inches, you could just put 2 inches of asphalt on top of the existing road without milling it to get the extra depth, but then you reduce the curb height. You can live with a 4-inch
Right.
reveal in most cases, but a lot of cases we don't even have 4 inches, I don't think, so.
4
And you'll see, go to Fort Lee, there's streets where there's a half-inch of curb left, because over years what they've done is they just overlay, because they don't want to spend the money, it's like Rob says, $3 a square yard to mill.
To mill.
So why pay that $3 when you can use that $3 to pave? So you just overlay, 2 inches at a time, so your 6 inches curb goes, and now you have a half-inch left, and then people are wondering why they have flooding.
Or,
So it's-
I mean, the other side of the coin is you just mill the gutter lines, so you take one pass from a milling machine where the curve is, so you're about 7.5 feet off the curve, and then you put the additional pavement into the center line. So you're building up the center line 2 inches, you're not taking that down, and what happens, you get a more severe cross slope. And what that could do, you could be blocking water, and there's other little problems that can come around.
And then the other problem, that based on the construction of the street, you're saying, that's why we have a lot of these reflective cracks then.
Yes.
If you know, like we'll repave a street, and then 6 months later, you'll see the crack down the middle again.
Yeah.
Because we don't have these full depth pavements. So basically what would happen, you'd have to put in more base to stabilize the...
Right.
And the Fifth Avenue, I think, is a perfect example of that. You can see that reflective
down.
crack right down the middle. It's not the little...
Fifth Avenue is close to 40 foot wide.
Yeah.
Between Howland and Continental.
So you have to do that in 3 segments, right?
That's why you got that crack, kind of like...
Yeah, because the paving machine can only go out, I think it's 15 feet.
No, but even, I said, even if when we redo that, that crack will eventually repair unless you actually either put more base in or...
Or put a fabric, possibly, you might have to put a fabric on it if you want to stop that.
It'll come back.
Okay. But again, it's up to the council.
And we were talking about Fifth having a grant. Is that covering this Voorhees to Continental? Is that grant? Is that the grant?
No, we have, in fact, the list has two more grants. They're discretionary grants, one for Fifth Avenue, one for the last piece of Howland. And it's just some engineering money which would be bonded. There's no down payment in this instance because this is all Department of Transportation grants. So we have a couple of grant applications in to finish up Howland, and also we actually have two grant applications on Fifth Avenue right now, and we have one to use.
We currently have $150,000.
But that's not what's on here.
No.
On here, it's Voorhees to Continental.
No,
you were saying it was the other way, right? It was Howland to someplace?
Voorhees to Continental?
On this...
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at
These are the red book.
C13.
Okay. Well, John Lynch did put Fifth Avenue on here, because when John comes in on the 25th, you're going to hear him say,
I put 100 ton.
I'm putting 100 ton down every week, you know,
Yeah.
and you need to address this as a separate paving
Right,
program.
he wants to address Fifth Avenue, because it's taking a lot of manpower and time and material in order to just fill in the potholes that are on Fifth, because the road is deteriorating.
But where does the grant, there's a grant application in and
Yes.
received?
We have one we received where we're going to start on Howland, proceeding north.
Okay.
And now we have two other applications in, and we're
One for
waiting to hear about
discretionary
two.
And one for 150,
Right.
or 200. The
Right,
next
to
you can get-
continue to proceed from Howland going north.
Okay.
Yeah.
With those three, how far would you get
Drop in the bucket.
It's $2 million from point A to point B.
Right.
from Continental, from Howland to Continental?
To do it, sidewalks, curbs,
Right.
drainage.
But this is how we did Continental, and this is how we did Howland. If you're patient,
Right.
if
Look
you
at
can
that.
wait, you know, the number of years,
Yeah,
we'll get it done with the grant money.
Howland Avenue was all done with state money,
Right,
from Paramus and then county money also with
yeah.
traffic safety. So from Kindercamack Road to the Paramus border, that was a combination of state and county money. Now, we're going to go from Howland on Fifth and continue north. We have $150,000, and again, Howland, we put in for a grant last year.
Yeah, we have two applications.
Two applications. And we should hear, I mean, relatively shortly, we should hear whether or not we're going to,
Right.
Yeah, they're late, aren't they?
they are a little late.
All right, maybe we could go to the county ADA program.
County ADA program, I was with Jason from the county, and I walked up and down Kindercamack Road, and this has to do with the ramps. Currently, the county will not and cannot pave a county road unless the ramps that are on it meet the current ADA specification. He is in charge of the ADA ramps with the county. We went out there, looked at every single one of them. He said, I want this one done, this, and we came up with a budget number, which I think is $300,000.
Well, that's my budget number. That's not an
I think that's
engineering...
pretty close to what it was.
It's not an engineering number. It's my
No,
best
but
guess.
Patrick's engineering without a license again, huh?
It's pretty close to what it is based on the county contract. And what that is, that would be money that would be reimbursed once the project is done. I think you can pull down some of it, but you need, I think, bonding money prior to that in order to...
Award a contract, right.
Put the contract out.
Did they state unequivocally that we will get dollar for dollar back on the ramps?
Yes. I mean, that's... But we don't have an interlocal agreement.
How could you put in ramps when there's no curb? Like the whole Kindercamack Road is just a ramp. There's no curb. How can you put in a ramp when there's no curb?
They will not pay for anything else but that. And then
Yeah, Rob raised that question.
we've had this
there.
conversation because
Yes,
on
raised
Midland
it.
Avenue, we were told to do this because of the resurfacing on Midland from Kindercamack again to the Paramus border. And I said to Alan, there's in a lot of places. There's either no curb or there's an inch-high curb. When that was done, then they wanted the town, I guess myself or the council, a resolution from the council stating that the curbs meet the specification of the county. So I called them and said, well, obviously they don't. Your specification is 8 inches. Certain areas there's 0 or there's an inch. But then they came back, and I believe now it's a state statute. Their jurisdiction is from inside curb to inside curb, not curb, not sidewalk. So basically, it's back onto the community or the town to maintain the curb. Then it gets back that if we do a curb project, then Alan is going to then
Especially assess.
the homeowner. So you're probably talking on a county road, $25 a linear foot for a curb. And it starts adding up.
Yes, I'm unhappy.
Rob, when will we receive your survey, your list of locations and the survey results? I think the county is waiting on that, and, so keep that in mind. We need your
that's easy.
list of approved
It's very,
ramps.
It's interesting. If you do a private job, and you know this, you have to have grades on these ramps every 2 feet. This project for the county, if I showed you the form that they want filled out, it doesn't require it, so we can put it together very quickly. Which I don't understand why, but...
Okay, I'll speak to you about that, because we'll need to see that in the near future.
What about these, is there any other way to do a curb that's not $25 a foot? No?
That's
Not that I
final
know.
concrete.
What about these Belgian block curbs?
About the same
Similar
cost.
price. Up here what's interesting, and I've never seen it done before, but I wonder if you could precast, if we have a straight enough roadway. I've never seen it done up here. Southern communities, they do it. I don't know if it would be cheaper that way.
What do you mean precast?
Bring the curbs in
Bring the curbs in.
Oh.
instead of pouring them there.
Instead of-
Florida does it.
Yeah.
The same idea when you do granite, though. It gets to the point where you have to start special forming curb
The problem is,
and connections and transitions, so
nothing-
it could...
Nothing here is
It's not straight, so...
Curbs, and it's-
That'd be
Is granite more expensive?
Yes. Yeah. Significant. I mean, does it last?
It'll last forever,
It'll last forever,
but it's probably $100 foot,
The other thing
dollars
is,
a
keep
foot
in
or
mind,
something.
even if you do precast concrete curbs, you still have a periphery of stuff that you need to do to set them.
Right.
So it isn't like you're just digging a hole and dropping them and
Yeah.
push the dirt back. You still
Yeah.
got to put a laying bed of concrete down,
Yeah.
or, kind of more of a
You could
mud
put footing
mat, what we call mud mat. And this way it locks it in, and then you put the dirt back. So you still got some of that stuff coming.
I know, I've seen it in Florida.
That adds to the cost of the
They do it
precast.
down there.
And they're 8 inches of, their code is just,
Well, they
makes
got-
no
they
sense,
also
because
have-
you're going to want to back pitching everybody's sidewalks anyway,
That's
and
the
then you
other
have to wind up raising
And
every...
that's, I've said this, if you take a curb now that's 2 inches, and now you're going to make an 8-inch curb fix, you're lifting this up because you're not bringing the roadway down. Now, you have to go back to regrade in order to make the water get back into the street, otherwise you're creating a dam. So the cost goes up significantly.
Now, that's under a proactive, if you want to go and have the county pay, say, hey, this road of Kindercomack or this portion of Kindercomack, we need it repaved. They want you to do this.
They
At what
would-
point does it become an emergency enough that the county has to do it, no matter whether we do the curbs or not?
Well, we had a conversation like that. We actually had a conversation saying, this is your roadway.
The roadway.
It's your roadway. And Alan said he'll paint the signs and put up, the county refuses to pave the street. So,
But
it's interesting
I mean,
that-
I like your
I like
thinking.
that idea.
I'm that kind of guy, but...
They didn't
I like
care
that
as long
idea
as they
a
were
lot.
paying for it, because PSE&G repaved half of Kindercomack, and they didn't have to touch one ramp because the county didn't care because they weren't getting any money. It wasn't coming out of their pocket, so it's more, I think, that
Well, what I'm
if
saying
they
is-
get money from the feds, and the feds say you have to be
you
ADA
have to-
compliant, that's what
Right.
that's what's
They-
pushing them.
They had, I believe, $8 million, if I'm not mistaken. And the money was frozen. because they couldn't take it down from the state, because the state got the money from the federal government until this is done. So basically, there's at least $8 million sitting out there for repaving, because I know you must have got the same phone call. Rob, we have a lot of money to repave. You got to get your ramps done, and we'll pave. So the question becomes, either do it or don't do it.
I don't know why, do you know why PSE&G didn't pave the other side of the street?
Because they only dug up that one
They didn't
side.
have
So now if we get them to replace something on that side, we can get them to pave the other half.
Honestly, we tried, Mayor, we tried back then to say, we put a lot of pressure on them back then to do that, and they...
It's hard to get them to do one more inch than they need to. It's hard, but...
They actually did a little bit more. Usually they just do that 3-foot trench,
Right.
but they did do a 10-foot, you know.
But we had numerous meetings to say...
Oh, yes,
let's pave the-
they went
let's
to
pave the
that,
whole-
to that length, yeah.
All right.
I think the taxpayer needs to call county. Listen, we pay a portion of our taxes go to the county to begin with. Now I'm driving on a county road that's got 8,000 potholes in it.
But again, they're going to say, well, you're out of compliance with ADA, it's not our fault.
Well,
That's, so...
all you need to do, though, is do the ramps, and that's a reimbursed cost, 100% reimbursed.
Well, I'm saying nobody looked at the fact that there's more to it than just saying do the ramps.
No.
Okay?
As long as we just do the ramps, that's all they're concerned about. What the mayor is saying, that there's a lot of sections where there's very little curb face, the curb is just deteriorating and it's gone. They will not pay for that. So it would have to be the town to pick up that cost, and again...
But couldn't we say, if they're giving us jurisdiction now over the curbs, in our ordinance, that means we can say our ordinance says that those curb faces have to be 6 inches, and they'd have to mill out to conform
See, that's
on
what
our
I
street.
said to Gary Askeles. If the curbs are no longer yours, why do we have to put in an 8-inch curb face? To meet
No,
your-
but we can mandate that we want 4 inches and let them mill out to bring it down to 4 and give us our 4 inch, if they want to play that game.
I mean, you could, look, you can certainly do that. There's no question. But are you defeating the purpose? If you have a thick roadway right now that's going to last longer, I mean, really what needs to be done on Kindercomack to freshen the whole street up, take the curbs out and put in new curbs. And we've had this conversation, and, I mean, do it the right way. And again, maybe you do it in small chunks, but again, if you go back and then you start assessing the homeowner, I think people will be in here with pitchforks.
Yeah, they will.
But what about, how would you address the section, let's say from Dante's, I forget that road, Clarence, something like that, to the market, whatever that is there, right? There's no curbs anywhere on both sides, because you have all the businesses here, so
Well,
there's no officially a
You have to
curb.
put a drop curb there in order not to take out their, you mean, with it, yeah.
I'm talking about all the guys' driveways, right? First of all, there's no curbs that exist there now, because you have, on this side, it's all the businesses, right? Sanducci side, all the way through. There's not one curb. And on this side is all the dirt curb. There's no curb on that side.
Right. You'd have to put the curbs in.
Before they would come and pave the road.
No, they will pave the road when you do the ramps on the corner. You have
But
to
there
bring
is
them up.
none there, at all.
There's ramps.
Is there a ramp on
Yeah,
there?
there's ramps up and down Kindergarten. I think 30, I'm trying to think of the number, 30...
You want the number? I'll give you.
So we have a concrete ramp that goes to a dirt
Yeah,
curb.
Yes, and that's what I think the mayor was saying.
it's ridiculous. You can have a curb ramp with no sidewalk going to it.
Correct. If
It
the
doesn't
ramp
matter.
is there, you need to put the ramp back in, but it has to be up. Years ago, there were reflective strips. Then they took the reflective strips out. Now you need to put in the reflective strips back. You need 2 ways you can do it. One, it's got to be set in the concrete itself. Plastic or fiberglass, you set them in, it's poured in place. Or you can use brick pavers with the domes on them. Years ago, you could paint it, so now that ramp that's painted, no good. Then they used to screw them in, no good. So in order to get this done, you got to rip everything out and then put it back in this way. Then if they, down the line, if they change it again, then these ramps are non-compliant, and then you're back to the same thing again.
But they've changed the tolerances on the construction also. Like,
Right.
and one time you could have a quarter-inch lip at the bottom for
Yeah, no,
drainage.
no, I get
Now
it.
they want it flat.
You're in a
You used to have, there used to be like a 2% tolerance on the landing area, now it's zero,
Now it's 0%.
you know, and it's...
In the landing areas, it's 4x4. There's discussion to say they want to go to 5x5. So now if you do your ramps at 4x4, and they change the rule again to 5x5, now your ramps are not compliant.
So this 304,000, you're basically, is just for
Reimbursable.
ramps?
Yes.
Reimbursable.
But it still goes in our budget this year, and we get reimbursed next year, budget-wise.
What's this?
No, I don't think so. I think
The
We need the down payment money into the
Yeah,
budget
and we'll
this
get
year.
reimbursed when the
Yeah.
project is, so, yeah, but it could be next year.
But the down payment doesn't get reimbursed until next year's budget. Where does it...
Well,
When the
when does it get
project ends.
reimbursed?
Yeah.
I think you can draw
Well,
down...
we're not sure, because we're going to award a contract. Contractor's going to come in, he's going to bill us, we're going to pay, we're going to have to go get reimbursed. So what's that timetable with the county? Hopefully, you know, they have meetings, we have engineering reviews that we have to get through. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's...
we'll get the money back.
But I'm wondering if it's in this year's budget or next year's budget, but you're saying you don't know.
I'm telling you, the only thing that's going to hit 2014 budget is this down payment amount.
Okay.
You know, the rest for me is going to be cash flow until there are expenses that the county won't pick up, and then I'm going to have to say, okay, we have to fund these things, if there are any already expenses like that.
But you wouldn't necessarily bond this in total, right? You would
Not right away. We're not going to raise
You
the
wouldn't
cash
raise any
that
money
way.
on this
No.
one? Okay.
Well, you wouldn't pull it down. You might not have to pull it down.
No, I mean, the council's concern is this down payment for 2014. I would not worry about anything else, you know, at this point in time.
Would you ever have to borrow, the way it's set up with the reimbursement, would you ever have to borrow this money, actually borrow it?
I might have to if there wasn't enough cash to work with in the capital fund, but I don't anticipate that. I anticipate having enough cash to work with temporarily
Until you reimburse
to
them.
pay it out and then get it back and replace it before we get to that point where there's zero in the capital bank account and I have these expenses and now I have to go out and borrow some.
Is there some kind of document or something that puts the county on hook? Like, let's say, okay, we're going to do 50 curbs today, which gives us X many feet that theoretically can be reimbursed or paid for, right? Is there a piece of paper that between us that locks them in and says you will pay us for this?
Yeah, we have an agreement already.
Yes.
Okay.
But here's the point, which we've been talking about for months with them. And Rob raised this question. If we do a ramp at this location, were they going to pay for any overage that would run onto a local street?
Right.
And I think we have an understanding that they will
Yes.
at this point. But
the
that was not clear for
that's
many,
not
many
clear
months.
In the actual interlocal agreement.
Right.
The way the interlocal agreement is worded, it appears they're only going to pay what's on the county road. Now, obviously, there's intersections.
Sure.
So when that ramp goes to the side of the street...
Because of the grades that are needed.
Because of the grades. They're saying, the way the document was written, no. Then they said, do a survey with Jason, which I did. And he goes, okay. We came up with a map, we have it. He agrees to it, and that's it. And then that would be what's ultimately going to be done in the field and then fully reimbursed. So
I had come up with 83 locations on Kenneconnect.
Right, but we're not going to do all 83.
I know, but you asked before how many are on Kenneconnect. That's the number I had come up with.
Well, I'm saying, this guy now is deeming these are okay to go.
Correct.
We may, tomorrow, by chance, they change the vote, like you said, they now say you gotta be X more clear. Are these null and void?
No.
They'll still reimburse you based on the
Only
commitment?
if you, two things can happen. If you touch the street, they need to be compliant. So if the county's going to come in, mill and pay, these have to be compliant as of 2014.
Right.
Or if there's a ramp that isn't compliant, and the community, I guess, would be a legal action, then you would possibly be compelled to fix that ramp. But as long as you don't touch the street, I don't think you need to go out there and start ripping up all the ramps throughout the town.
Rob, do any of these ramps have any real problems, like with utility poles or traffic signal controllers, that they may tell us we need to pick the cost up on?
A lot of the section from Lincoln North, because, again...
Well, the slope is a different issue.
Slope is...
But I'm just wondering about, because I know, like so if there's a utility pole, they're going to say you have to move the pole, and then they say, we're not going to pay for that. And they said they will not allow you have an exemption for that either. Like, you have the engineering exemption, but they're not going to allow that. So I don't know, do we look to make sure that...
We looked at
so we don't have any of those kind of problems, because that can
down every one of these. We have a few that have some conflicts for other reasons. Traffic signals, traffic control boxes.
Yeah.
They should just, it's very difficult to move.
At the meeting that we had with our borough attorney there, to go over this agreement with several engineers and Public Works Director, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but at the time, we raised these issues about the intersections with the poles and things like that. They represented that an exception might be allowed.
Right.
But there is something in the contract, I believe, where they would pay for the movement of the pole, the traffic light or the pole, and that cost would not be on us.
Correct.
Now, whether that's still the current law, that an exception can be allowed or not, I don't know. But once Rob comes back with the survey, then we can address those
Well, I think
issues.
then they should sign off.
Right.
This is it.
Are they putting the contract out themselves again, and then we just hire their contract?
It's a current contract.
Sorry?
It's a current contract.
Yeah, okay, so they just extended it, whoever they had before, I don't know if it's still Alexander or...
I think it's, it might be concrete construction.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
I got one more question, a clarification. Rob keeps telling that we're going to get 100% reimbursed. And you seem to vacillate.
I'm hedging.
You hedge on that.
Because of my experience with the county, where we've entered into these agreements, and sometimes it comes down to a professional engineering difference as to what's in the contract and what's not in the contract. An engineer will come along and say, after the fact, well, wait a minute, we didn't tell you to put that in there, you did it, and the argument will be made, no, we had to do it because of the way the specifications and the plans, and there's a difference of opinion. So I'm preparing everybody for that contingency where the whole inspection gets done, and somebody down there says, wait a minute, we're not interpreting the agreement that we had, this way, and you've got to pick up a little bit of the extra cost.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, I like to prepare everybody for the worst-case situation.
Based on your professional expertise and longevity, this is a $300,000 project. How much fudge would you put in for your
I have no idea. That's really an engineering question as to, how much confidence you have in what they'll interpret.
Theoretically, zero. You should have 100% reimbursement.
Robert, are they picking up your inspection costs?
What's your accounting?
That's included?
Well,
Please,
what?
some would say.
I would like to see the survey. I'd like to see how many ramps, whether they're single or double ramps, whether we've got poles involved, and then, I know what I did with this estimate, I know what number I put in for a double ramp, a single ramp. I'd like to see what the survey says and what those locations are before you really go back to this number and say this is a good number or not a good number.
Are they requiring detailed plans for each intersection? Or what do they want from you?
It's a one sheet. I'll send it to
Well,
you.
I guess that's my point with Alan then, because then that's going to form the basis of our agreement. It's got to be detailed. Like you said, if there's going to be a pole removed, they need to sign off on, like you're saying, here's our survey, these are the intersections.
I have to see
this is
the
what-
survey.
Yeah.
Basically, the council has to make a decision if you want Kimmickack Road paved at some point in the future, and again, it might not happen in 2014. The ramps will be installed, but the county's not saying, okay, the minute you're done, we're going to pave Kimmickack.
And we know that where we're putting these in, we know that part of Kimmickack Road needs to be paved.
No, they want all of the ramps done on Kimmickack, based on the survey that I want.
Before they do anything.
They will not do anything.
It would make more sense, Al, if they said, yeah, we know this year we want to pay from the Hackensack border to Howland, but they don't tell you that. They don't decide that, so...
My vision of Kimmickack Road isn't as bad as some of the other streets in town. Is it?
No, especially since PSE&G did half of it, it's not as bad as... But we only have those county roads.
To me, this seems like a pretty good deal.
Yes.
There's a little bit of downside here, but if we're going to get it all back, for your discussion.
For the discussion?
If we're going to...
But Al, the reason, and I've mentioned several times at the council and these meetings, when this program first started in Fort Lee, they came to us and they said, okay, we're paving Anderson Avenue and Center Avenue in Fort Lee, 2 county roads. Got to fix the ramps. They came up and said it's $20,000. And that was their budget for it. When they went through all this rigmarole, it wound up being a $200-something thousand project. Then they said to us, you guys have to pay for it. we're only paying $20,000, and we had a big fight with them to go through all this to make sure that they were going to reimburse the borough for the full amount, because they came up with all these changes, and first they said, you want to do A, B, and C, it's $20,000. Oh, no, we want you to meet these new standards, it's $200,000, and we want the town to pick up the difference. That's what I don't want to see here. I understand, if we're going to get if it's $300,000, we'll get our $300,000 back, fine. But I don't want to put $300,000 out, and this costs us $600,000 for a street they may not pave for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's where I am. So I think if Rob gets the survey, the county agrees, yes, and we're going to pay for this, then that's fine. I don't have a problem. We got to just make sure we're using our money.
The only thing is this, and again, if you look at Kindercomack, the question becomes, you do it the right way and replace the curbs and make the whole thing fresh. They will not pay for that.
And there's no grants anymore.
But again, this goes back to, it's a county road with curbs. The county should come in and do the right
But the
job.
grants we did get on Kindercomack, were those county grants or were those T grants?
And then those are T grants.
Yeah, okay, so they're not coming anymore.
All right. What's next? Mayor, I put something in here for Grove Street parking improvement, because I know that there have been discussions about going beyond just restriping the Grove Street property once that gets done. So this is my number, not an engineering number, for either reconstructing the old DPW garage area or doing the roadway between Grove and Lincoln, or, doing something to add some additional spaces in that area. I'm not sure what the phases would be or what the cost would be, but this is to get the discussion going,
Could you work with this number, 95,000 for...
I believe a while ago, I came up with estimates for Grove.
Right.
And gave it to the council, but on Monday, I'll go back and I'll pull a file just to make sure.
And the storm sewer improvements came out of the sewer subcommittee, recognizing that we've had road collapses which have resulted from sewer or storm collapses. And we typically get 1 or 2 of those every season when we have a lot of rainfall. We have a lot of freeze and thaw. So where you have a severe winter with a lot of freeze and thaw, and then followed in April with a lot of rain, then we have typically experienced
Almost every year
several of these.
you get it.
And you're better off financing these through capital rather than having to declare an emergency in your operating budget and then have to solve it as another headache in your operating budget, which that type of an emergency would be included within the 2% levy cap. It would not be excluded. And so,
Okay.
it's the reason for including that here.
Just, I wanted to mention, to go back to Grove Street, there was an ongoing small issue with the easement where there was an issue over the stairs that lead to Mr. Grassi's property, and whether or not we would remove them or not. And I spoke to him, and I think we could resolve that issue by just putting up a piece of fence, chain link fence, maybe 6 feet wide, just to block access to the stairway. So I hope that John Lynch has a couple of bucks in his budget just to put up one little piece of fence, so we can move forward with that.
Bob has offered also to just put a Latin flag at some of the perimeter points so we can see where that 10 feet easement does reside, on the property, in case we have to do any landscaping, basically, to accomplish the turnaround.
Okay, good.
If you pave this and put striping down, who's going to park there? Is that going to be for customers up on...
We designate it as a commercial business parking area, so...
Permit, we're going to start with permit parking.
For employees.
And for employees of the businesses on Kindercomack Road.
Okay.
And if we sell all of the permits and there's additional need, then we can go into phase 2 and remove the cement slabs where the DPW buildings were, and do some gravel or some asphalt and stripe some spaces on the other side and enlarge the area. Eventually do the easement so that there's access from Lincoln.
So, ask Rob a follow-up question about Grove. The only vehicle access to Grove Street parking is through Grove Street. There's no other right-of-way from Parallel Street?
Lincoln.
There's a grass strip that the borough
But not-
owns.
Right.
It's
so
not,
that
it's not
is-
improved, but we own
Correct,
that
but
piece.
I just asked because a resident had asked me this question. Would it be possible to restrict the vehicle access to that parking lot from Grove Street and only allow them to come in the other way?
Probably not without improving.
I think we showed...
But there's a concern about-
We showed two different traffic patterns. I'm trying to, off the top of my head. One was, I think, in Lincoln, out of Grove, or vice versa.
But we can't do that the way it's figured, the way
can't do
the situation is
two-way
now.
on
Right now, we can only go off
Okay.
of Grove unless we start removing and taking more
We'll take the
work
boulders
there.
out and then...
Yeah, and then you'd have to pave that.
Right, because there's a lot going on over
Yeah.
there.
Actually, I almost had to put oxygen on Alan the other day when I said, you know what, you should think about purchasing the Lincoln property,
It would be great.
because then you have something. Then you have a rectangle, and I thought I was going to lose him, actually. Yeah, that was last
And
week.
with the one with the built house?
He would have really went all the way, because I wanted to get the other piece
Well,
of property
then
on
you
the
go
other
all the way
side.
through. Then you just keep
To
going.
Washington,
Now you have something.
where there's a vacant
Now-
lot with the in-ground pool. That's a big...
Now you have a redevelopment area.
Because residents have raised concerns that they're concerned about the safety, Park Avenue residents, about the safety, because kids use Grove to play. And if you're, got these vehicles now coming in here, that's why I asked the question. I wasn't
Yeah,
part
they've
of
been
this
parking there anyway,
discussion.
though.
Excuse me?
I said they've been parking there before anyway. There was always permit parking
But if
before this.
we're encouraging more, it's going to, residents have raised some concerns.
The plan is to put permit parking for employees of the businesses up on Kennecott Road? Is that the... No?
Not on Kennecott Road. The employees right now park on Kennecott Road.
Three of those.
So there's really no spots for customers, for shoppers to park, because the employees are taking up the spaces. So we found an area on Grove Street where we received an easement. We're getting an easement from Mr. Grasso, one of the commercial property owners,
Okay.
and we can stripe that area. I forget how many spots we're going to get, 14 or 20
Yes.
spots, or
Well, yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay.
not a lot of spots, but if we intend on making them permit parking and sell the permits to the business owners,
For their employees?
for their employees, to
Okay.
ease up so that there's some street parking on Kennecott Road.
Okay.
Because the likelihood, that somebody's shopping there is going to park down there and then try to go, even walk around the block. And again, I bring this up with the malls.
Okay, I'm just trying to get, a whole picture of it.
Closest space to the front door of the mall, and then when she gets in there, they will walk. And walk. I never understood it.
Is there a time limit on the parking? I do the same thing at the gym. I got to get the spot right by the
That's
front.
it, the same thing. It's,
Yeah, right now, we have a small little area between a couple of stores where we have 5 or 6 spaces and a handicap space that says 2-hour only parking, but it's not enforced. It's used by the workers, and we've had some vandalism there of those vehicles because the store owners are complaining that each other's employees are taking up the spots. Really need to have some shopper parking in that upper Kennecott Road area. So we're trying to do it in phases so that first we identify that there's a demand for it before we spend our money.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, I think that's about it for infrastructure. Yes.
Alan, one small thing, I didn't see it on here, and maybe the council might want to consider this. Depending on the amount of money towards resurfacing, I brought this up, I think, I don't know, to the mayor, when we were at a planning board meeting, and I know you're going to jump off the chair with the complete streets. I really think if you want to go that route, maybe put some money in on Continental and try to squeeze Continental down by the park in order to slow the traffic down, because right now, between Continental and Howland, there is a tremendous amount of cut-through traffic on these streets. And again, I know it becomes an enforcement issue as far as slowing the people down, but I think if that gets narrowed, and then basically the park almost becomes one, maybe the council might want to consider putting money there, maybe take it out of one place, and then...
Explain this to me again, because I didn't get it.
The mindset now is, if you make the lanes narrow, 10 feet, 11 feet, maybe 11 feet, that a driver will slow down because of the narrowness of the lane. What I'm thinking about there is bump it in where the park is. You do two things. You'll slow the traffic down in that section, and you'll almost connect both sides of the park. Maybe we can do some sort of a treatment. I know...
You're talking about Memorial Park?
Yes.
Okay.
I get it, Jim. You're just talking about bump outs then, for the curbs?
Yeah, bring it, narrow it in. Bring it, maybe, I don't know about speed tables, I don't know if you want to go to that extent, but I'm just saying, maybe bring it in, and maybe use a treatment, use environmental pavers, the heavy-duty ones. I know John is going to go crazy, we're going to rip them up during a snowstorm so far, but they work.
In
And
Florida...
I put them in a lot of lots right now, and they work tremendously.
When they want to do that, instead of bumping out the curbs, they put it in a center island.
You do that too.
Is there a benefit to bumping out the curbs to center island, or center island to bumping out the curves?
It's
50/50?
If you have a center island there, people will stand on it, waiting for traffic to go by, where you might be creating more of a hazard than if you did the bump outs.
I think if you do the bump outs, and again, change the treatment of the roadway.
The center island.
Maybe bollards on both sides, give it some look.
Give me a number and I'll put it in as a separate line.
I told them.
Let's see how they go.
Everything I tell them is $200,000.
Theoretically, want me to put that number in? Is that your number?
I think it's pretty...
What number?
All right.
Sorry, Rob. What'd you say?
I'll put it in for the next time.
They keep it $200,000. That's my new number.
Yeah, oh.
Probably not
You're just talking about between...
Millbrook and Elm?
And that's, what, probably like 500 feet?
Well, I'm just talking where the park,
I know,
where the paths are.
But how many linear feet are we talking
Now,
about?
the only thing you might get, I don't think you can do the whole thing, because you have people that drop off the kids with camp and everything, so you're going to get a little...
Yeah, but you can do a kick in, if we want to do that as a drop off.
Maybe where the trail, not the trail, the walkway.
Wouldn't you do it at the logical point where people would be crossing to get into the park and mothers would be moving their feet and the crossing guard is there?
Where the path is worn out on the grass. That's where you put the sidewalk. So the same...
But that's a good point, though, because people tend to cross in the center, and they really should be crossing at the crosswalk, and we want to make sure that we encourage people to cross in the right place, rather than encourage them to cross in the center.
It would be a mid-block crosswalk, which you can do.
That's fine, but as long as it's...
But I'm saying,
but you have
take that area and bring it in, and
I understand.
change the treatment of the roadway, so it's something different.
I understand.
You have to do the whole section, because the traffic, people don't respond right away, so you have to make sure you have enough approaches.
No, I'm saying, just maybe cut somewhere else.
Right. There you... No, I'll put it in this line, let's take a look.
The only reason, two reasons I'm saying that. One, the park is a huge asset in this town. It's a huge asset. But what I've noticed, and again, maybe because I'm running on the streets, now, believe it or not, I'm actually going to Van Saun to run, because the traffic on Continental, it seems like it's...
You're speaking as an engineer or as a resident now? You're speaking as a resident, I'd like you back in the...
We don't have...
Come to a meeting.
We don't have counts. Maybe the police department can do some counts to see how much volume of traffic we have on Continental. But, I mean, just from the appearance, it seems like there's a lot more traffic on Continental recently, for whatever reason. Whether people use it as cut-through, people learned about it, there's more population north. They're choosing us to get around Route 4, I don't know. But it seems like there is a lot of volume on Continental, more so than what was in the past. And I have no engineering data to back that up. I haven't done a traffic study, and, this week is maybe not the discussion on the traffic study and what is a traffic study.
If you're on Kinnickmack Road going north, and you want to go west, rather than go down to Midland and make the left, you're better off making the turn on Continental, going across, and going that way.
But that's
I mean, if you know the area...
Spring Valley, Continental's not a good cross street to get west, though.
No, but if there's a lot of
What I
traffic
do
on
is I
Kennedy,
take...
Those are Midland.
I take Continental to Fifth, and I take Fifth to Midland.
Okay.
That's the way I cut
You
through
can
all
do
of
that too, but I mean...
Because
if-
the whole-
And I always...
I mean, that supports Rob's...
I always have a
argument.
couple near misses with some kids right around that fence.
Well, we have
Really good.
But there's a sight distance issue also at Fifth and Continental, because of the way the hill is, you know, at the traffic signal.
Right.
That's a
There's
bad
no
signal
turn on.
too, because people go through that.
There's no turn on red there, for that reason. That you have limited sight distance.
But how many times, I mean, where I've been heading, say, back towards, heading south on Fifth, and if you don't wait 5 seconds at that traffic light when it turns green, you can get broadsided, because
Yes.
people heading eastbound come right through, and they don't see the light, and they go right through. I've talked to the chief about that for a couple of years. That's a dangerous spot.
I was thinking about having a traffic study to close the lanes and route everything through Summit,
Yeah.
right past Mr. Costa's house.
As long as you can put a toll booth, I'm all in favor.
Well,
They can widen the street though, so it can go fast.
One other point, Alan, for it hasn't to do with this year's capital, last year's capital, Rob. Last year, we put $25,000 in for a left turn signal at Main and Kindercamack. The county said that they'll do the engineering if we pay for the signal change. And then they said they were going to tie it into Huffman Coo's approval, which I don't think they ever did.
No, I know what you're talking, I mean...
Remember, but I mean, I just want, if you could just raise that with Joe Femia to see where that stands, because that is a nightmare every time you try to make that left turn.
Because of
And
again...
the money was put in the budget to do that, so
When you come out of it.
if they're not going to do it as part of his project, I would just get the county on their timeline to do that, because
I
it's
think
bad.
once the mall does open, I think you're going to see, I have a feeling a lot of that's going to be revisited. because
But it's going to be too late by then.
No,
Once it opens, it's going to be...
certainly,
yeah.
I'll send you an email with all the cards, but no problem.
Can you set up another meeting so that we could revisit Kindercamack Road
Set it up with the county?
with the county engineer?
Sure.
And what's your opinion as to whether or not we should hire a traffic engineer to present a case to the county engineer that the speed limit should be changed? Should we just spend that money? Do we need a traffic engineer? Do you want to recommend somebody? Can we do it without a traffic engineer?
We had that conversation. I think,
Yeah, we didn't get anywhere.
well, you didn't yell loud enough. I think if you,
Well, we did yell. He said he'll go to 30.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
what he
they
said.
will reduce it. I really think they will. I don't think you need to go to the expense of getting a traffic. I think set up another meeting and say, look, we want it slowed down. I think they'll do it. I know they said that day, no, and they came in with the graphs and 85 percentile
Right.
here, and this is here, and the bell curve's coming out, and we're back in statistics in college, but
Should we be reaching out to the freeholders? Would that help?
I don't think you need to go to that level yet.
When I went to the freeholders, I went to a freeholder meeting, I spoke, and they told me, the way we do things here is the freeholders don't make any decisions unless
The county.
the county engineer signs off on it. So that's why we set up a meeting with the...
No, I meant
county
political
engineer.
pressure. Call up John Flees, call up Joan Voss, call up, a couple others.
That could probably backfire.
I don't think you need to go to that level. I think, I'll set up a meeting. I think the best thing is set up another meeting, have whoever on the council wants to be, because
Even if that, would they be more open to saying, just make all the Kindercamack 30? Just make it all 30. Not 35, 30, 25, 30, 35. It's just ridiculous. Just make it one solid 30. Would you think they'd be more likely to move to that?
Yeah, but isn't Oradell already at 25?
And Hackensack is at 25. So
No, I think it should be 25, but I'm wondering, where can we push them where we get success?
It is what it is.
You'll get 30 in River Edge.
We could do that.
That's what we'll get.
yeah, she'll get it. You'll get it.
We'll get 30. I don't know if we get 25, you'll get 30 in River Edge.
So if we can't get 25, let's push for 30. That's...
You could push for 25, but, I mean, Femia said he wasn't going to sign off, because he's got, remember, he has to
How about
sign
we go
off
back and push for 25 knowing we want 30?
You could do that, yes. So we push to 25, and then if they offer 30, then we
Jump at it.
take it at it. Yeah, but that's...
Councilman, just from my recollection, I think the problem was that there was a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, which I think was the mayor. Actually, I think he actually said it at that meeting, that you were the one that was actually pushed this bell curve in the wrong direction, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because you were speeding or something? Wasn't it?
Well, the thing was, there was
Just
most of
one
this,
study.
I mean, if you remember looking at the charts, basically, most of the data showed
It was in
35
compliance.
is
It was in
appropriate.
compliance.
But there were some sections where it definitely, it could be moved to 30.
But the reason being, during rush hour, you can't do 35.
No, you can't.
Yes.
You can't. So the data is skewed.
That's exactly
Well, but
right.
they didn't do it during, their data was
You don't know
during.
when they did it, because you never, the data could be skewed. I think the best thing, set up another meeting and have, obviously you can't have too many council people, because then it becomes a public meeting rent-free. I would go there with the mayor or designate at least 2 or 3 people, because then they will take you seriously. Because they don't want to listen to it. It's not that big of a thing for them.
So if we haunt them enough, they'll cave, we hope.
That's what I've, in the past, yes. And usually if I haunt them enough, they usually finally say yes, because they just don't want me to keep calling and sending emails and bothering them.
What can we do to make the existing crosswalks on Kinderkamek Road safer?
Again, the best way to quell is to do the bump outs, right?
Yeah, but the county's not going to,
They're not going to pay for it.
not on, and they're not going to let you do that, Kinderkamek.
I mean, could we put a
They will.
blinking...
I mean,
They might make you do, they might put some
We did it in
rumble
Fort
strip or
Lee.
something, but they're not going to.
We did it in Fort Lee many years ago on Main Street, and they were so dead set against it. They've done it in Oradell. You have bump outs in certain areas. And it's about this by the summer.
I would do bump outs, Rob, if we can get some on-street parking.
We need something by the post office. Can we get a blinking light? Will they pay for a blinking light or something?
Well, I think the best way to quell the traffic is to narrow the lanes and bump it in. And then you have two things happen. It gets narrower, people tendency to slow. Plus the road gets smaller, so your crossing distance becomes much less. And it becomes a safer environment for pedestrians and cars.
They said we have money to also put more timers on, so there's money in the budget for that.
Well, I mean, the other idea is to come up with another light somewhere. And then you have more gaps, and that creates space for you to do this. But simplest, cheapest, take the road and bump it in. And I think that two things happen. Again, you slow down the traffic, and the road becomes safer for pedestrians crossing.
And this will be like Emerson, trying to get through Emerson on a Saturday morning, if you do that.
Emerson's a mess. I mean,
It's going to be, that's what you're going to, the effect's going to
the
be.
way the train comes through there, and
With the signal there, it's,
yes, that's a difficult scenario.
All right.
I'm sorry, did you say there's money left in the budget for timers?
yes, we put 25,000 in.
Has, do you know what the next logical place would be to put it? Have you guys figured that out, or?
No, last year
Do we
we
need to
had...
identify that?
Last year we got the county to put the ones in Midland because we had gotten some complaints there.
Crossing, right.
Based on my estimate, the 25,000 is enough to do all of them.
Okay.
The question was whether we can get them all off state contract, because they weren't on state contract. So last year we were only able to buy a certain number of them because it was under the big threshold.
Okay.
To do it that way, but the money's there. And you can talk to my friend Mr. Ascalise to see, or Randy Seitz, if that's back on state contract, because then we can just purchase them and they'll put them in for us. So
What's that?
the countdown timers
For the crosswalks.
for the pens.
The light?
Mayor, the last thing would be the next meeting dates, just to develop that schedule a little bit. I know I'd like to have Rob and John here on the 25th, Saturday the 25th, and then at the work session of February 3rd, I'd have both Chief Caridi and Caridi. But Saturday the 18th is open. I'm not sure everybody can make that date. So I'd like to know what the pleasure is of the mayor and council.
I won't be here next Saturday, but that's okay. But the one thing I would suggest, Alan, also, when Chief Caridi comes from the fire, you may want to have John Lynch available also, because he's got some overlap with maintenance and fleet issues that I'm sure he's going to want to explain too.
Councilman Mignon and I had met with two fire chiefs, assistant chief and fire chief, and John Lynch, because there is overlap. So I agree with you.
All right.
I don't want to keep bringing John back, but we either get
I'll advise
Greg Caridi with John, or
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
If rather than hear the stories separately and then have to put them back together, it's better to both hear the same.
Maybe the chief will be available on the 25th. And we can-
Yeah, and that would be better than,
Yeah.
because you'll be able to hear
Okay.
those issues.
All right?
So we're saying no to the 18th, which I never had on my calendar, and yes to the 25th. Is that correct, Alan?
Yeah, unless, you know, I had no date beyond the 11th at this point, so you're really sitting down, making your calendar out for January here.
I
So,
thought there were dates. I mean, I have the 25th. I'd like it the 25th.
well, recently I sent emails out through Ed and copies to everybody else, if these are the dates we're
Yeah, Alan
talking
was
about.
talking to me about
Oh, so
schedule.
they're
That was
not
that was
wanting to
something
sit
I
down
had
and
suggested
strike
about the
any dates, so
schedule,
that's
so
what
that
we're
was...
really
Oh,
doing now.
I just thought they were firm. Okay.
So, maybe,
Okay, January 25th, that's a Saturday.
that's a Saturday.
Our work session, which...
February 3rd is the regular work session at 7 o'clock.
So that's 7 o'clock.
We're doing a meeting with the residents of Fifth Avenue on February 3rd, 6 to 6:45. That's why we can't start the budget earlier.
And then, Alan, I guess the question...
And then when?
February 3rd is a regular work session of the mayor and council.
Oh, that's May.
Now, is there any other date that the
Well, I was going to say,
council wants to meet?
I do appreciate you're able to give us an initial projection on all those numbers, like I asked you for. And you say your official date would be like February 10th, when you're going to have your year-end closeout and know what the rut is and all those
Yes.
things? Would we be able to have a meeting on the 8th, say, that Saturday, and have those numbers available to us, so we know what the rut is, what the revenues are, what...
Frankly, I may not be available. My wife and I received some Broadway tickets. We're going with my kids, so I may not be available on the 8th.
Okay.
For personal reasons.
I'm going to remove that from my calendar.
Then maybe do that on the 15th?
What show, musical?
So we saying the 15th?
So take the 8th out and then go to the 15th. And 15th would be, and I would assume that we have personnel in interim, so the 15th might be a good starting point for where we know where we need to go from where we're going to be.
Well, actually, if you want to, we don't have anything for February 10th, a Monday evening.
I don't know if I
I
can
really
make
want
it
to...
I cannot do February 10th.
Okay.
I have a business meeting.
Okay.
She's running a lot.
But that doesn't mean we can't do a Tuesday or Wednesday night if we needed to. I mean, I certainly could arrange that, but that Monday is not workable.
Which Monday is that?
Monday the 10th.
Tuesday would work for me. If you want to, Tuesday the 11th.
Tuesday the 11th?
That's the SID snow date meeting, but we don't know.
Oh, yeah, so we can schedule this and then...
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
okay.
So are we saying the 11th?
We'll say the 11th, Tuesday the 11th.
That's a personnel meeting, right?
No, that's going to be
Budget meeting.
budget meeting.
What day is it?
Tuesday the 11th.
At 7?
At
At 7 o'clock? Or
7,
earlier?
yeah.
7?
Did you say we had the SID meeting on?
That's the snow date.
No, we had a
Oh, the snow
snow
date,
day. In case
okay.
we need
Yes,
it.
all right, so we may not need it. Okay.
Yeah, if the SID meeting gets snowed out, we have a backup day.
February 11th.
Tuesday, February.
Alan, just tell me when you want me, and I'll...
Well, 25th,
That's
definitely.
definite?
Yeah, we'll put you together with John on the Saturday and go back over capital, and maybe they can make some decisions on some of the capital items.
You know what I also might recommend, at a future meetings, that everyone introduce themselves, because we are now on audio and video, and if any resident is viewing this, they may not know who we all are and our roles in the process. So that might be a good idea for our next meeting, if everyone, and for every meeting after that, because somebody may go to one videotape but not to another.
I didn't realize these were...
Yep.
Yeah, we're doing it this
I
year.
would never dress like this.
Let the public
Oh,
see
you're
what
ready
we're
for a
paying
game
already.
of 3-on-3, huh? I can't dribble, so you're on my team.
Well, you can check the Nielsen Ray, find out what you get.
That'd be great. I'll get right on that.
So Alan, after all these dates, can you have somebody send it out and see tell us what?
Yeah. Right now, all I have is the 25th, the 3rd, and the 11th, February 11th. Looks like nothing, no...
Not until the 1st of February?
No.
So Alan, right now, 25th.
25th for you,
Unless-
yes.
Unless there's
Right.
some sort of a snow.
All right.
What happened to the 15th?
Yeah, and the 15th, we said the 15th also,
Oh.
Saturday, the 15th.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
No, I think we're going to go on the
Oh, the
11th,
11th
and then we'll
instead?
decide,
Oh,
do the
okay.
11th, then we'll decide from there, because I think the 11th might be the night where we start.
Perfect.
You moved it?
Perfect.
Second.
I didn't move it, but I'll move it.
Moved it second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, thank you.
You should count yourself lucky you're not up at Alpine today. They're up there today the full day.
Oh, it's a
It's
mini
Mini K.
K, right? Yeah, and then when, 25th?
25th.
For the Klondike? Is it
Yeah.
Klondike?